Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Hot Mic Podcast. Nathan Ivey with you, humble host and moderator. Welcome back. We bring the chat in. We got a few crew members that'll be joining us, or a couple crew members that'll be joining us a little bit later. Until then, you've got us. Hope you're doing well. I see people are in the chat. Appreciate you. We'll get to you in just a second. Want to say what's up to the crew today. Tarris, a.k.a. the elephant in the room. Horton, how you doing, sir?
Doing very well. Glad to be here.
Good to see you. I like the Republican banner in the background. There it is. Stand on it then. Okay. Got the voice of reason. Kevin Aldridge, how you doing, sir?
Doing good. Happy Tuesday to everybody.
Yeah, one of the co-owners of the Ohio Kings, off a big win in the playoffs. So looking forward to what comes next. Maybe a championship, or we'll see. I'm hearing the team is really hot today. Hot this year. So looking forward to it. Let's bring people in from the chat. See, Brenda was in first this afternoon. Good to see you, Brenda. Again, I mean, there's just so many podcasts and live streams and videos and platforms. The fact that you spend any time with us whenever we go live, I truly appreciate it and do not take it for granted at all. Kamikia writes, hello, everyone. Hey, good to see you, Kamikia. Christian's in the house. How you doing, Christian? Good to see you. Benita writes, good afternoon, Nate and crew. Dina is here. Good to see you, Dina, as always. Good afternoon, everyone, especially the Hot Mic crew. Shahira writes, good afternoon, everyone, especially I think I just read that. Tony Huey, who got off the chat and into the crew last week. Appreciate you, Tony. Hope to see you soon. He was at the Ohio Kings game. We were just talking about that before the show started. David Herring, good to see you, sir. Good to see you. And Rachel, hey, she writes, hi, guys. Good to see you, Rachel. So we're supposed to be joined by Laketa Cole and maybe about 1:30-ish or so. And then brother Curse Breakers, Andre Ewing is scheduled to join us. He might pop in as well about 1:30 and join the crew. Really appreciate you. At some point in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so, once we get the conversation started, I'm going to post a link on Facebook and YouTube that you can use to join the show. And you can do it just on audio. We had somebody do that last week. They had a cover up and just join with audio. You can do it that way. Makes it more of like a traditional talk radio type of thing. Or you can go 21st century and join with the video straight from your phone or whatever device and join the conversation. You don't have to be a podcaster. You don't have to be a former podcaster. You don't have to be an elected official. You just got to have an opinion and be willing to share it. And that's it. And you will get pushback. Probably. So just know that. Just know that. So appreciate everybody. Let's jump straight into it. And let's start with some local topics, or a local topic. And let's talk about the fact that now you got primarily Republican lawmakers in the state of Ohio in the aftermath of the Cincinnati brawl that captivated so many people and got millions upon millions upon millions of views on multiple social media platforms. Now they're calling for something called the Hollies Act, and they want to get tough on crime. And I'm giving you some details about the so-called Holly Act, and then I want to get your thoughts about it. And it would do a bunch of things. Number one, they want to make it, and this is where I think they're going to get a lot of pushback, is that the bill would prohibit nonprofit organizations from posting bail for serious and violent crimes. It would also put a cap on charitable bail at $5,000. So you know what has happened is people get into some issues with law enforcement. If it's highly publicized, even if it's not, they'll go to some of these crowdfunding sites and solicit donations. They want to put a cap on that, among other things. Senator Bernie Moreno has said he's going to introduce a federal version of Hawley's Act that would raise bail requirements and increase mandatory minimum sentences for violent crimes. So I want to throw it to the crew and to the chat as well. Anybody who might be viewing and or listening in general, what do you think about this? But here's my question. Do laws like this, and again, it's just been proposed, do they actually stop violence or just create headlines after tragedy? What do you think?
Tarris, you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I mean, we've seen this coming from the initial start of the Cincinnati brawl. Whenever the first initial comments came out, we've seen whose faces were the first politicians to say something. Bernie Moreno and JD Vance. First two people, if I'm not mistaken, they raised, and I'm not for sure, but I think they raised about $500,000. But I'm just candidly speaking, and that Holly got, and there was jokes around that, you know, people were saying, man, I would have took that hit for $500,000 too, you know, but you know, like this is politics, in my opinion. This is how it works. Bernie Moreno is going to be up for re-election pretty soon. He has to go back to his constituency and say, this is what I got done. This is why I need to be reelected. And for whatever donors give him, whatever coffer they made a play. I mean, the whole thing was a political grandstand, and we see the ripple effect of it still continuing to happen, even up till this next election cycle. I don't know if he's in 2020. I think he's in 2028. If he gets this passed, because it'll probably take a little bit longer. It's not just going to be something he can introduce and gets passed. It could probably take until at least 2027, 2028 to get the law passed if it goes through. He could say, this is what I passed. It affected us locally. I was the first person on the scene, and go to his people who are baiting, you know, crime braiders, so to speak. But I would like to see the same energy go to gun laws. I mean, that's all. I'm going to land my plane there, but I'll say this same energy should go to gun laws and instead, like people who misuse and misappropriate uses of guns. This part right here, I feel like it's a political grandstand. I mean, but this is politics. You're seeing politics work in real time in your city. That's going to be a rippled effect that could affect nationally.
Yeah, I think one of the major wars and battlegrounds that we're going to see over the coming months and maybe even years is going to be around this issue of bail. That is going to be, I think, one of the primary things that you're going to see Republicans attack in their effort to get tough on crime. You know, you ask, do laws like this actually stop violence, or do they just create headlines? Well, if you're somebody who believes that, and they made this case in the case of Holly, that I guess one of her attackers or a couple of her attackers had some previous issues and might have been out on bail, and you know, there's this overarching view that, you know, mostly liberal judges are soft on crime and they're letting some of these people out on bail, you know, even as soon as the next day after they do something. And, you know, we've got to find a way for the good of public safety in the community to keep bad actors behind bars and not let them back out on the street. So that's what's behind this. So if you're somebody who believes in that, then yes, they would say that if we had stronger laws like this and tougher bail requirements and things of that nature, guys like those who assaulted Holly wouldn't have been out on the street to be able to inflict those sorts of crimes. So I think we can expect a lot more bills like this and a lot of other issues that are going to be used to attack bail and people's ability to get out of jail once they've been arrested and charged with a crime. Now, the problem with that is, and I think you're right, where you're going to see pushback is this notion that Bail in and of itself is designed to make sure that a defendant returns to court to face the charges against them. Because in this country, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty, right? And so that's why bail exists, not to keep people incarcerated per se until they go to court. It's designed to make sure that if you have the means and the ability to pay your way out, you can get out and mount your defense or whatever, and then you come back and show up for trial. But I think there are a lot of people who take this for the safety of the community track that says that bail shouldn't be necessarily used for the purposes of making sure that you show up for court, that it should be a means to keep you in jail. And so they want these tougher bail requirements or standards so that folks who commit crimes can't afford to pay their way out. That's why they want to attack these charitable, donations, or go after these charitable donations, because if an individual doesn't have the money, and as you said, they go to a GoFundMe or whatever, or there's a nonprofit organization out there that wants to pay for somebody's bail to get out, they don't want that to happen for these people who they see as threats to society to be able to get out and commit more crimes. So I think that's the battle. I think that's the conversation that you're going to see a lot more of moving forward. I think, was it a year or two ago, they had it inserted into the state constitution that judges had to consider the safety of the community when coming up with bail. And so, yeah, this is an issue that I think we could expect to see a lot of conversation around moving forward.
I thought we already went through this. Like, we spent years and years with the 3 strikes laws, truth in sentencing, mandatory minimums, right? We did all of this, right? Clinton, who was supposed to be the first Black president, which even in my younger years, I pushed back on that. Never made any sense. But he helped to usher this stuff in when he was president. And what we found out is that none of it worked. All it led to was an explosion of the prison population, broken families, and a whole lot of people who make money off of building prisons getting rich. That's all it did. It didn't solve the crime problem. Made a lot of people rich, broke up a lot of families. That's all it did. So here we go again. And I just think we need to be careful about the way that we talk about crimes, the way crimes are reported, because it festers up all of these anxieties in people that anytime you walk out your door, you could be the victim of a crime. Yeah, you could be, but statistically speaking, you're probably not going to be. If you're not in the drug trade, if you're not in downtown Cincinnati trying to pick a fight, you're probably going to be pretty cool. No one's going to bother you. And so now it feels like we want to upend our legal system for what? Because of the myth of the scary boogeyman? And at what cost? So now Ohio lawmakers want to ban charitable giving, meaning that if people want to voluntarily donate their money to me, they cannot. Why? Because I'm the alleged, it's alleged I committed a crime. We're talking about people who have not gone to court. They haven't gone through the legal system. We're just talking about bail here. I just feel like the fear around crime is at the point where, unfortunately, we have politicians that are just plucking low-hanging fruit. Instead of spending time to talk about real problems, to really address the root of crime, it's just so much easier to say, you know what, we're going to come up with even stronger laws, which don't work. And it's just very, very sad. And again, constitutionally, how is it you're going to tell me that I cannot give somebody my money? That's my money. If I want to donate,
they're not saying you can't. They're trying to put a cap on it. So what they're saying is, and the $5,000 cap is intentional, because when you think about, a lot of charges. Let's just take, for example, the Riverfront Live shooting, which is a perfect case where to the outside, to somebody who would support Holly's law, and there's been a lot of criticism over the judge and the bail that he set in that case. for the defendants. The bail was only set, I think, at like $50,000.
Yeah.
So 10% of 50,000 is 5,000, which, you know, depending on what your financial means are, may or may not be something that you can make. Clearly, it's not something that the individual in that case can make because they're still in jail, even at 5% of 10,000. So it's seemingly that even that $5,000 is beyond their ability to post bail and get out. But that being said, a lot of people would say 50,000 for that type of event, 9 people shot, is way too low, and maybe it should have been higher. And in many cases, I've heard that the feds came in and they brought their charges in their case primarily because the bond was set so low, and there was this sense that the local justice system wasn't gonna handle this situation in the way that it needed to. So, you know, the feds under the Trump administration got involved as a backstop to that. So, you know, now if he did $100,000-$200,000 bail, would it have made a difference in the guy's ability to get out of jail? Probably not, because he's still in there on 10% of 50,000. But it definitely would have made better headlines, maybe kept the feds at bay. And that's where I say you get into this conversation about what is reasonable and effective bail and what is excessive bail that's being put out there, you know, maybe solely for headline purposes or to perhaps make the public feel a little bit safer about somebody's inability to get out of jail when they're perceived as a threat to society. But one of the main drawbacks of our justice system is that it creates this, as you said, this notion of that a person is innocent until proven guilty. I don't care that the evidence looks clear. And I think that's what rubs people the wrong way. Like, clearly, these people rolled into a spot, shot it up with a bunch of people in there. That's like open and shut case. But the reality is you still have to go through the justice system. These individuals still have the right to present their case, fight for their defense, try to prove their innocence, maybe even self-defense. It sounds like both of those guys are arguing self-defense. We saw people jump to a lot of conclusions on the Fountain Square shooting. Turns out that guy was defending himself, right? So that is a perfect example of why we have a innocent until proven guilty system and why we have to go through the court process. And as a result of that, sometimes that means you're going to let that there's a possibility that somebody you think should be held in jail is going to rightfully get out and use their bail to try to defend themselves. And in the process of that, you may have a handful of bad actors who are going to get in trouble again while they're out on bail. That is, unfortunately, one of the byproducts of a justice system that wants to make sure that we aren't holding people, that we aren't jailing people who might otherwise be innocent once they get an opportunity to get to court.
What people need to realize is, no, go right ahead, Jerry.
I just want to add about the Holly Law. Whenever I think about that and something being introduced as federal legislation, I would hope, as someone who's an informed, intelligent, or feel like I'm intelligent, that it's built on truth. You know what I'm saying? There's too many cracks in this whole thing with this Cincinnati brawl and how the things have come about, that it happened on a local level, that people on a national level might not even understand or understand the implications of how this thing came about. And they're just going to go along with it just because it's a Holly Law. They show the mugshot that you showed of the picture. They show that, and then they get viscerally involved and emotionally involved, and they're like, oh yeah. Not going into what you were talking about, Nathan. How many families will be broken up? How many people will be affected whenever you're talking about the long-term effect of this? And it's all not rooted in truth. That's my thing. Whenever I think about this Holly's Law thing and going to federal, it's not implemented in truth. So I hope it doesn't stand. I hope it doesn't go through. I think that if they're going to put this much effort on something, it should be on, like Kevin was talking about, emphasis the gun law, the gun charges that the guy just went through. Let's beef up charges on that instead of focusing on assault charges that were a bar fight. That make it go a different route, in my opinion. If it's going to be more about, if you're going to attack bail on stuff like they did in the crack cocaine eras, where you had a little piece of crack cocaine, will jam you up. If you're in a situation like at the Cincinnati, at the riverfront, and you're going in there recklessly, willy-nilly shooting a gun, it's like that. No matter, you should do serious crimes, not take something with false pretenses like the Cincinnati brawl and pass that as law. That is something so serious. Whenever we have more serious situations that we could pass the laws through.
Well, I read an article from, what is this, from Ohio or State News, statenews.org. And there was a quote attributed to some of the sponsors of this bill, and they consider an outright ban on charitable giving. I mean, they there's quotes in here in which they had that conversation. Then they pulled back and said, well, the other states have put limits on it. Let's start there, which tells me that they're thinking about an outright ban on charitable giving, which is ridiculous to me. I should be able to give my money to whomever I want to. If I think that I want to help somebody, no matter what the world thinks about it, if I want to help somebody who's gotten into legal jeopardy, trouble, I don't see what the problem is. This is someone who is not being convicted. We're to the point now where it feels like, depending on the type of the crime and who you are, once you are alleged to have done something, you're already guilty. That's where we are now. In Cincinnati and Ohio, it feels like if you're a black person primarily and you get charged with something, you are guilty just because you were charged. That's how it feels like a lot of people are looking at it. And I think that's very troubling. Very troubling for every last one of us.
I think people look at, I think it's less about who you are, and that may be some of it, but I think it's more the crime that people look at, right? So, and I use the Riverfront live shooting as a perfect example. I think people look at that and they say, here you got a couple of guys that rolled up in this spot and shot up a place and 9 people got shot. Like, they don't deserve to be out. Like, they should be in jail. Like, I think a lot of people look at that and say, like, those guys clearly have demonstrated that they're a threat to society. Like, they don't care about rolling up in a bar or a club or restaurant and shooting it up, whoever is in there. So those guys are ultimately threats to society and shouldn't be out. So I think it may have more to do with the crime that folks are accused of, particularly when they're violent crimes. Like, that's a big thing. They're not talking about somebody caught with weed or that sort of thing. I think the focus and the emphasis is on people who commit violent crimes, like the brawl, like what we saw at Riverfront Live. And honestly, in most cases, a lot of people do feel like when those sorts of things happen, shootings, assaults, they don't want to see those people out. Right.
What about protesters, Kevin? That's my question. Is like, what about, could this potentially affect protesters? Say there's a protest going on and people got messed up, had to go to jail, and then there's groups of people who are, fun people getting out, and legal aid for peaceful protesters that get jammed up in situations, get riled up. Would that affect them, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you have to look at the language. I thought I saw something in there that said this was about violent crime. So they may be targeting it solely for people who are perpetrators of violent crimes or accused of violent crimes. I think that's where a lot of the focus is, and where you're more inclined to get people on board, because all of those are things that the average person would look at and probably agree that these individuals pose a threat to society. Nobody's going to say that about protesters or some of these lower level crimes, but you get more people hooked when you start talking about violent crimes, because I think most people can look at that and say, yeah, I could see holding that person, or making it tougher for them to make bail. To Nathan's point on the charitable piece, I agree with them wholeheartedly, and I'm surprised that there aren't more organizations that have even tried to challenge the limits to say that, that just seems to be like unconstitutional on some level to me, that you would attempt to tell people where they can get money from to mount their defense, to post bail or whatever. Now, I could maybe see government saying, hey, if you are a nonprofit and you receive money from the state or the federal government, you're not allowed to use any of those dollars, and use any of those dollars to pay for a bail. But if you have people donating to a fund, average everyday citizens, I don't see how you can step in and limit that. That seems to me like that would be challengeable in court, and I'm surprised you don't have a lot of organizations, and maybe you do, and I just don't know about it. But I would seem that would be like ripe for the picking for like an ACLU or some other organization who would want to challenge that.
See, Janice Rice, I just find it very interesting that a law is justified only after a white woman is assaulted. Out of all of the women of color who have been assaulted, this is what finally broke the camel's back. It goes back to identity politics. You know, as much as I hear people saying identity politics we're against it, I keep seeing evidence that it's alive and well. It matters who you are. It matters what you look like. It matters how much money you have in your pocket. And a part of me feels like this is also a response to what happened in the Hinton case, where, you know, he ran over the sheriff deputies. And then we start hearing that he's got $50,000, $75,000 in charitable giving. And I wonder if people are like, well, he shouldn't come up off of that. You shouldn't benefit or make money off of the fact that, you know, you just killed somebody or you just unalived somebody. You just unalived a member of law enforcement, which I get the sentiment, but are we just going to just throw out all of our civil liberty and protections because we are so afraid? Is that what we're about to do? Are we just going to just give up the whole system because somebody committed a shooting that you're probably never, ever going to be involved in? Is that where we are now? I mean, why don't we just scrap the whole system? Check it. As soon as you are accused of any crime, there is no bail. Everybody stays in jail. Jaywalking, you stay in jail. Any kind of crime whatsoever. I mean, that's where we're headed. Let's just get to it and stop playing this. Let's not slow walk it. This is where we're headed. And, you know, you're going to have a high percentage of the state that's going to cheerlead themselves straight into a police state where there is no bail, right? Where you don't
at least not any bail for anybody who's not wealthy. Look, here's the thing. Here's the reality. Wealthy people are never going to that. I mean, that's never going to happen because wealthy people are never going to allow that to happen. Look, you know, Jeffrey Epstein probably could have made bail. I don't know when he was being charged with his crimes and so forth and so on while he was still alive, if he did have bail and if he made bail. I mean, people of means, you know, you can't keep them in jail because they can post a bail. You know, you could set a $5 million bail, you know, for OJ Simpson or somebody like that. And again, this is more of a class thing than it is a color thing, right? Like it's your ability to have the financial means to beat the case. You know, I mean, OJ just happened to be one black man in America who had the financial means to defend himself against the system. If OJ had been Earl Johnson, you know, from OTR, that brother would have been in jail, right? He would have had to plead out, you know, to keep from getting the lethal injection or whatever it is. So, I mean, it's as much class as it is race, this conversation, you know, that we're having right now. But without question, to your point, Nathan, you know, we've said it, we've known it, that the race in this whole downtown brawl situation, you know, the racial dynamics in the Hinton case, all of that stuff is a factor that determines how tough people go after it. If it had been a black woman who had been beaten up by a bunch of other black people in downtown Cincinnati, and she had the same injuries that Holly had, Bernie Moreno wouldn't be down here trying to come up with, you know, with Vicky's bill or anything like that. You wouldn't have Vivek Ramaswamy coming down here trying to hold town halls. You wouldn't have any of the posturing that you're seeing from the GOP post-brawl if it had been a black woman who had been assaulted. If you change the races and say she's assaulted by that same group and she's a black woman, there would be you wouldn't be seeing this right now. And so we just got to reconcile the dynamic that race is what made this story what it was, and it's what's produced this bill in the way that we're seeing it.
And I'm just confused because I see these situations being played out where somebody has a weapon and they discharge it and they claim self-defense. But then I look at the state level gun laws, they're set up for things to play out this way. Like what the brother did on the riverfront on the square, not the riverfront, but on the square. That's the way the state laws are set up to work. You are able to, and in some cases, they're under disability, meaning that because of previous legal circumstances, they're not supposed to have a weapon. But the way it works in Ohio is I can carry a weapon. And if I feel like you're going to pose a threat to my life, I can defend myself. That's the way it's supposed to work. And so on one hand, I'm like, we vote for politicians that create this legal structure so that if you get into a situation, you can use lethal force. But then every time somebody uses lethal force, people want to get all afraid. This is what you voted for. This is what you wanted. This is how you want things to go.
But much like the initial laws that are set up for this country, these are laws that are not set up for people of our skin tone. These are laws that are set up for the majority community. Stand your ground is a direct law that says that pretty much it's a white fear law. Is pretty much what stand your ground is, which says that you are able to have a weapon and you don't have to retreat in the event that the scary black man who you all envision in your mind is going to be the perpetrator of the crime against you, you have the right to defend yourself against that. They don't think about that law being, primarily for African Americans to be able to use that law in the same way. And I would just be curious to look at, in the cases in which stand your ground laws have been used and when there are black and white suspects or black and white individuals who have been involved in, and I'm not saying I know the answer to this, but I'm sure somebody has looked at this data. I would love to see what the outcomes of court situations are where you've had a white defendant who has used stand your ground as their defense, and when you've had a black defendant use stand your ground as their defense, and if there's any discrepancy in the results of those cases. I'm sure that data is out there somewhere, and that is always a telling tale of who these laws are intended for.
All right, let's move on. Okay, more local news here. This is from the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio just went into effect. We had talked about this when it initially made the news, but Ohio has now banned SNAP benefits to buy soda and sugary drinks. And the question is pretty simple. Should the government, one of many actually, we'll start here. Should the government decide what people can buy with food assistance?
Again, this is one of those things where you say, like, look, man, we got issues with gerrymandering. We got issues with, public school funding. We've got issues with people being overtaxed with property taxes, like all of the real issues that people really care about and affect their livelihoods and their pocketbooks. The state house and the federal government isn't interested in trying to solve any of those problems. What they're interested in is trying to tell people who are on SNAP benefits what they can eat and drink. They're interested in trying to, raise bail, and tell charitable organizations who they can give bail to. Like these are they're trying to police, one or two transgender kids who might be out there trying to participate in sports. Like these are the things that politicians are spending their time on, worrying about who's in whose bathroom. Like those are the types of things that they're spending time and capital on when they're real issues, pocketbook issues. We're bleeding jobs left and right. And they're not concerned about that. We're at war at Iran right now. We're not concerned about that. 7 soldiers so far killed in a conflict that nobody can explain why we're even involved in. Like these are the types of things that people care about and are concerned with, not whether people are using SNAP benefits to buy Coca-Cola. I don't care what you use the SNAP benefits for. That is your choice. And I always find it funny that a party that is all about freedoms and personal liberties, right? Oh, they shouldn't be able to tell us that we got to put on a mask during a pandemic But we sure can't tell people on SNAP benefits what they can drink. Well, which is it? Do you want people to have personal freedoms, or do you not want them to have personal freedoms? Damn it, if you don't want to wear a mask in a pandemic, then somebody on SNAP benefits ought to be able to decide whether they want to get a Fanta or a Mr. Pibb or something like that. Man, get on out of here with this. This is garbage. It's a waste of time. And there are a whole bunch of other issues that folk need to be worried about in Columbus.
This is probably coming down from RFK, if I'm not mistaken. And I like what you're saying, Kevin, but when you're looking at from a top bottom down thing, and they're looking at people who are going to be having to take care of later on in life, the people who are on SNAP benefits will probably, if you look at statistically, they're going to be the ones later on in life that are going to be on Medicaid, they'll have to take care of them. So if they can have preventative maintenance now, and let's not get it twisted like this is a Republican thing, because RFK started out as a Democratic presidential nominee and got ousted by the Democratic Party whenever they found out what kind of trickery. He said, no, I'm not with this. I'm going to go over here and jump on MAGA's train.
We lost you for a second.
They said they're going to jump on MAGA's train, and then when MAGA won, that's whenever he's able to implement these things, because he is the health. He's he's in charge of the Food and Drug Administration, or he's in charge of the health czar. Make America healthy again. He would have introduced this if he would have got on a cabinet for Kamala Harris. If he would have stayed with the Democratic Party and capitulated to the Democratic Party, and they would have went on and won. But he didn't. He switched sides, got on the winning team, and now he's implementing these laws that scientifically, if you break this down, and this is not a party thing, has to do with national health. If you look at what kills more people is fentanyl, but after that it's diabetes and it's sugar and the things that go on. And I drink it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that, but if you look at science, this is what happens. So if you can have preventative maintenance now and saying, hey, we're not going to fund this, because if we can have preventative, just like when you know better, you do better. Back in the day when they were using Crisco, or using hot irons to straighten hair, they've seen later on effects that says that's not good for black hair to use straightening irons that you put on your hair. It could cause cancer, so don't do that anymore. And it's the same thing. If they know that this is going to have a long-lasting effect, later on effects that says that's not good.
That's Laketa joining.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think if it's going to have a long-lasting effect.
Getting an echo from your side, Laketa. And good afternoon to you.
She might have the pod on her device. Yeah.
I do. I was trying to get it up on I have 3 devices, and I kept on trying to get them all up. And I'm like, this is not working. I have to be at home, I realize. I can't do it from anywhere else.
Well, you sound good.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can see you good. Sounds good. What were you saying, Tarris? Go ahead.
I'll end it with, if it's a long-lasting effect and we know that sugar is the cause of diabetes and things like that, why can't we have preventative maintenance, or at least try it? You know, I can't see it. I don't see it as a control thing, and I definitely don't see it as a party control thing, because RFK, regardless of what party he was with, because he started off with the Democratic Party and then jumped ship whenever he found out the funkery that you guys were trying to pull. He jumped ship and jumped onto the MAGA train and went and joined forces, because RFK had a force. He was an independent ground roots guy, and he had a force. He was a top contender. And if the Democrats would have jumped on him, they might have won. But they chose Congress.
Wasn't nobody voting for Brainworm. Come on, man. Ain't nobody doing that.
I don't think nobody's disagreeing about soda and all this other stuff. But what I hear Kevin saying, and I agree with, is that, I mean, is that really where we want our politicians to be spending their time, when people are at this point are the unemployment level and all those things? I mean, we're worried about they're buying soda with EBT. I really don't care.
That's his job, though.
You're not buying liquor and beer and all that other stuff, but some soda. Come on now. I think that's
That's
just
his job to do
you're doing too much.
That's his job to find out where you can make better improvements. And if they can feel like that's a better improvement for long-term health for the kids and the people who are receiving SNAP benefits, regardless who you are. And plus, if he's trying to attack the people who are making these very products of high fructose corn syrup and all that, he's trying to attack these people. Why not use all his power that he could have in the federal government to say, we're not going to use our money to pay for these things that I'm trying to get banned?
How about what you do is put some grocery stores in the community? That's what you need to do. How about you do that? That you want to make people healthy? Stop worried about banning soda and put a grocery store in Bond Hill, a decent grocery store. Put a grocery store in Avondale. You want to worry about people being healthy? All they keep doing is popping up these mini markets. Well, that's why they buying the soda. That's why they buying the chips, and that's why they're becoming unhealthy, because there's no grocery stores that are providing the fresh fruits and vegetables that are necessary for the kids and for the families.
I agree with that.
You want to give us these Save-A-Lots, and I mean, no offense, but come on now, a day old dollar late bread and meat. Come on, you talking about being healthy by banning soda? Come on, that's what I'm talking about. Let's concentrate on the real issues.
Meanwhile,
and the key to that. Oh, go ahead, Nathan.
I was going to say, meanwhile, Kai Trump is using tax dollars because she's got a whole fleet of Secret Service while she's on YouTube making videos at, what is it called? Erewhon, which is like the most pricey, expensive grocery store. So here we are. We want to restrict, like, God forbid, somebody that's on government assistance wants to get some grape soda. Like, God forbid, somebody on government assistance wants to get some chips and they want to get a cherry cream filled pie. Oh, the world is falling down. Meanwhile, Kai Trump, granddaughter of Donald Trump, spending I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars with Secret Service going to luxury grocery sprees so she can make YouTube videos. You know, to the point that Laketa was making, if they really cared about it, like she said, put some more grocery stores in there. Actually, I bet you that since food is rising and, you know, everybody knows that, you know, if it costs more to eat healthier, they should be talking about putting more money on the EBT card. So people can go to Whole Chat and they can go to all these places and get all the more expensive organic food. It just feels like, once again, using politics, you know, using poor people as a function of politics. You know, this ongoing war against the poor. We gotta look over their shoulder, and it's like, who is this scoring points with? Like this, you feel like your congressman or your representative is doing the hard work because they want to snatch food benefits from poor people? Tarris
said it though, Nathan. I mean, he said it in his comments that this caters to the people who feel like I'm paying for you, right? Like because I know down the road, because you ain't taking care of yourself, I'm already taking care of you and your family through my tax dollars that's going to this program. And now I'm going to have to take care of you through Medicaid, your diabetes, your other health related things because you're eating. It's a very elitist mentality. It plays to an elitist mentality that doesn't even necessarily go all the way up to the richest people in America. It's pervasive among many people in the middle class as well, who have a resentment towards these tax dollars that go to low income and poor people. I look at it like the church, right? Some people in church have this attitude. If I give my tithe, right, I'm not just giving it to God for you to do what it is. It's like when I give the church money, especially if I'm a big giver, then I have the right to direct how everything goes on and what activities and things take place, where the benevolence goes. There's some people who have that attitude, that when they give to the church, especially if they give big amounts, that gives them the right to tell you how that money is going to be used. And I think that's how I'm using that as an analogy to say that I think a lot of people feel that same way when it comes to these assistance programs that go to low income people, that they don't have any agency to decide on their own how to make use of the resources that you're giving, that Big Brother needs to come in and say, this is bad for you, and the dollars that I'm giving, I don't want you spending it on that. right? And I just think that that's just a very, very sort of elitist mentality that plays into this notion that, you know, that poor people shouldn't have any agency to decide anything if they're getting assistance.
Well, you know, and to Tarris's point, I've heard people make that point. It's like the health point, and we know better than you, and you're just so poor and misguided, you just can't think for yourself. So we've got to make sure that you don't get sugar in your diet. And I get it, but I mean, this is America, and what we realize as we become adults is when you become an adult in America, you have a right to wreck your body. You want to go smoke and wreck your lungs, you can go wreck your lungs.
Change the lunches. Where was that mentality then?
These people are talking who are wanting to change these are, if let's look at the departments of agriculture in the states whose departments of agriculture who agree with this. That's who I like. When I've heard this first introduced, it was from the Department of Agriculture head, the commissioner of agriculture, who was talking about we're growing these crops and we're growing these food, and then people who are receiving these benefits could be making better choices, but they choose not to because it's easier for them to have this. So if we can curb that to make them,
it's not easier, Tarris. It's not easier, Tarris. It's less expensive, right? So to Nathan's point and to Laketa's point, is the main problem is if you want people to eat less junk food, make healthier foods more available, and either make them cheaper or increase the amount that people get so that they can afford to buy healthier options. Or and we know everything is bad for you and tastes good is cheap. I mean, it really is. Most things that taste good and bad for you get for a song.
Man, let me chime in. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, good afternoon, everybody. I miss everybody. But check this out. You talking about health and fitness and things like that. Let's get to the truth of the matter. All right, number 5 killer of young people is cancer. Number 4 is heart disease. Now that sounds ridiculous already. That's in the top 5. So even if you got, say, healthier choices, do people still know how to eat? People don't read labels anymore. There's so much sugars, all kind of starches, all kind of kids with diabetes and adults because we don't read labels. So even if you put a Whole Foods into a community, if you don't read labels and you only eat sugar, it's still going to get you. So the bottom line is we don't teach our kids anymore to eat vegetables. We don't teach them anymore that these are healthy. How did your 5-year-old learn how to get to McDonald's? They didn't drive. You drove them there to get the Happy Meal. And so at the end of the day, the kids are doing exactly what you taught them. So at the end of the day, I'm saying like this, go ahead and teach your children how to eat. Tell them that, hey, vegetables are good for you. But if now the healthcare system has exploded, and now this is another way to say control the narrative that if we're going to give you money, we're going to tell you right now that guess what? Pop and all this other stuff is horrible for you. It's killing you because we can't keep up with the healthcare system as well. So we also going to tell you how to eat. But we as parents got to do better to teach our kids how to go about a proper nutritional diet and exercise, because in the black race, we are terrible at that. We got men in their 40s, heart disease, terrible eating. And that's what all kind of sauces and things that we do. So when are we going to take accountability and teach our young people how to properly deal with nutrition and exercise?
You just opened up a whole can of worms right there. I'm glad you're here, Brother Dre. So are you saying you are in favor of the state of Ohio telling people that, hey, you can't buy sugar pop with your EBT benefits? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if it's going to assist in controlling a narrative of being healthy, yes. I look at it no different if I tell my daughter you can't have that cake, cookies, and ice cream no more right now until you start eating better things. So at the end of the day, is it going to assist in better health? But don't just stop at taking away the drinks. Teach our children and teach actually adults and parents how to go through a nutritional structure that can assist them to help them get better.
I'll push back a little bit. I don't think it's just black people. I think that there is a lack of education across the board when it comes to healthy eating, reading labels. I think the FDA has fell down that responsibility to protect us from some of these products as well. But we can't have it both ways. Like, you know, I agree with you. If we want to just talk about the Black community, I agree. I'll say community in general, because I don't think it's just Black folks. I think it's people who, if you look at them socioeconomically, and there is a lack of education about it, but it just comes back from the way they grew up, you know, the way they were raised. And like, if your mom didn't know and her mom didn't know, how is she supposed to tell you? But there's one way you do that. You do that with, you know, programming in school, before programs, after programs. I know it because I did it. We had these kind of programs. We were teaching young people how to eat. It broke my heart. It was, you know, there were kids out there. We were teaching them about different fruits and vegetables. They didn't even know all the fruits and vegetables. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And so it's real, but we can't have it both ways. We can't take investment away from before and after school programs and then expect for people to have the health outcomes just magically. We have to invest in these communities, and I just don't see enough investment to justify pulling back.
Yeah, and so here's the thing, and Laketa mentioned this, and this is an important point that you can't miss. You got to look at these neighborhoods. Most people who are on EBT benefits, right, are low income to poor people, right? If not dealing in areas of poverty. What we know about most impoverished neighborhoods in Cincinnati is there's a thing called food deserts. They don't have the growth. They don't have the Krogers. They don't have the Whole Foods. They don't have the fresh food markets in the neighborhoods there. So now what you're saying is you can't buy pop and all of this other junk from if you're lucky enough to have a store in your neighborhood. That's probably all they got, because there's not fresh fruits and vegetables alternatives in these places. So now where am I supposed to go? So if I'm a low income person and I'm on EBT, I may be transportationally challenged to where I can't get out to the suburbs or some of these neighborhoods or Hyde Park or wherever, where they might have a Kroger where I got to use my EBT benefits now to get access to these fresh fruits and vegetables. So that is a key part. Now, you don't have no problem in these neighborhoods finding a McDonald's, finding a Taco Bell, finding all of these different things that Brother Dre talked about that are not healthy options. They got one of those on every corner. You know, they got the convenience store on the corner that sells all of these things. It's the same thing that we talk about with the liquor stores and the gun shops and all of these things that are pervasive in poor and low income communities that are all products that lead people who leave there to death, not to healthy outcomes. And so if you are going to pull back, to Nathan's point and Laketa's point, you've got to make investments to where people have the option to make better choices. So you're going to tell me I got to make these choices, but none of those choices exist in the neighborhood in which I live. So how is that fair? Right?
I can show you how they're going to exist, Kevin. When they go through that grocery line and their little kids are like, mommy, let me get that soda pop. And the mommy's like, we can't get that because we can't get that on the EBT. Instantly, that kid's going to know that they can't have that no more. I mean, this is,
but my thing is not changing.
It's easy.
It's not about, I agree with everything that you and Brother Dre are saying about trying to create healthier outcomes. But I'm saying when you go through the line and you tell their kid they can't have that, in Hyde Park, I can say, hey, go over there and get an apple, right? Go over there and get an apple, get a celery stick, get some alternative, get some apples, you know, oranges or whatever. When you don't have these fresh fruits and vegetable options, then what do you tell a kid? Well, you just can't have that. Well, what is the alternative?
I'm sure they're going to. I'm sure these corner stores and all they're going to find a workaround, or if not, the government is going to come up with some kind of drink that is acceptable that they sell on EBT. I mean, this is. I think that the cutting out the sugar, it's a good start. It's where they can start on creating better, healthier choices. And it's not a partisan thing. This would have happened regardless of if RFK would have been on the Democrat or the Republican side.
No, it wouldn't have happened. But let me ask you a question. So you're saying this is a good thing, it's about health. How did you feel about the mask mandate? because that was about health.
That's
That was about health, and you was against that.
I wasn't against the mask. I was against how the Democrats politicized it, but that's a whole different.
Were you for or against mask mandates by the government?
I was not for mask mandates,
but that was about health.
Okay, Nathan. I'm gonna kick back on that argument right there, because that was about health that has proven since to be non-factor. Dr. Fauci since went back and said the mask had nothing to do with anything. It did not help or hurt the pandemic. We're talking about this sugary drinks. We've got years of research to show that the leading cause besides fentanyl of death is diabetes and heart related stuff that can be curbed by sugar intake. High fructose corn syrup. They don't sell that stuff in Europe. They don't sell that kind of drinks in these other countries.
You do realize, like, when you go into surgery, doctors wear masks. You realize that. You know, the reason why they wear masks during surgery is because they don't want to spread anything.
It could be a political virtue signal too. That if you're on a mask, you're a Democrat. You know that you got other allies. Because how you gonna be out there masked up at a rally with 10,000 people? That's a whole nother argument. Because we're talking about soda pops, but I know you put a mask.
Here's the part about that argument with the mask with COVID that always maddened me. Right. And what Tarris said is absolutely not factually backed up by any evidence that masks weren't effective, that they didn't help or they didn't hurt. What is clear is that masks reduced the spread of COVID-19. Didn't stop COVID-19. Nobody ever said that a mask would stop you from contracting COVID-19. What they said the mask did was it reduced the likelihood of the spread, which means if you reduce the likelihood of the spread, that means fewer people who come in contact with it, that get it, that reduces the likelihood of those who were susceptible because of health issues and other things from contracting it. So the thing that always was maddening about that was people act like, oh, these masks ain't gonna stop COVID. You're right, it didn't. And nobody ever said that masks stop COVID. What it says is it reduces the spread. Right, that's different than saying it stops COVID. Yeah, and 100%. That was the politics that was injected into it, not by Democrats, but by bad actors. I'm not going to even assign a political party to it because I don't want to get into it. I'll just say that there were many bad actors who were out there. We know what were out there portraying that message, and unfortunately, it cost a lot of people their lives because they listened.
We know who it was. It was primarily. We know what party it was. It was all.
Nathan, let me share something real quick.
Right here, sir.
And I'm gonna say it like this to the clown that mentioned my name on the Dunning-Kruger effect. Let me just break some stuff down about health real quick. Okay, let me break this down. My daughter had asthma. Okay, early, around 2 years, when she was 2 years old, the doctor said, Brother Dre, she got asthma. She gonna keep having asthma. What I did was talk to one of my partners, and people may know him on Facebook. He's a diesel vegan. His name is Brother Bizot. The brother told me years ago, he said, what is your daughter drinking? I said, she on milk. He said, take her off of milk immediately. He said, what else is she eating that got dairy products, cheese, all the stuff that we feed our kids? So way back then, I took my daughter off of it, found different alternatives. We didn't have a Whole Foods to go to. We didn't have a special grocery store. He was just like, make better choices and remove that process. Guess what? We removed it, went back to the doctor. The doctor said, your daughter don't need an inhaler. He said, I don't know what happened. It's a miracle. I said, no, we took her off of dairy products. Now, see, the bottom line is the education is out there. So I don't need to sit back and try to prove, oh, do I know what I'm talking about? Or I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about experience in dealing with certain foods. If I constantly eat sugar and I got a low metabolism rate and my blood is clotting up and I'm eating meat every single day, they might tell you something to change up your nutritional program. So it ain't got nothing to do. Oh, does he know what he's talking about? Look, I done competed on high levels. And people say, well, man, you done went through a police department. You went 30 years and you ain't weighing 250 pounds and got a gut out. What you do? Because I'm still measuring my food. I measure everything I eat. I use portion sizes. So, you know, when people talk about nutrition and go back there, I'm gonna tell you, it's called trial and error. We accept what doctors say. We just accept what the grocery store gives us. But I'm the one who's gonna grab it. So I gave my daughter those choices, and hopefully, people listening to the journey of trial and error, because somebody else has went through it before you. So if you just don't assume and you just take what somebody giving you, that's exactly what you're gonna get. I'm gonna just leave it right there. But don't throw stuff out there in comments unless you're ready to back it up with information.
I love it. To my knowledge and my limited, years on this earth, I mean, what you just said is on point. Food is medicine. Food is medicine. And the best doctors will tell you that. If your doctor if the first thing your doctor, when you have an issue, the first thing they don't ask you is what you're eating and what you're doing, you got the wrong doctor. You got the wrong doctor. Food is medicine. You're right. The dairy, the sugar, too much meat, eating 3-4 times a day instead of fasting, it will have a tremendous impact, as you already know. You were speaking to Brother Dre, on your health and well-being. And yeah, it can clear up some ailments. Absolutely.
Hey, Nathan, but to me, the crux of the conversation we're having is not any of the things that y'all are talking about, because you're all making excellent points, right? And we should all be looking at and guarding our health and looking at what we're eating. But again, this is about your personal choice and your personal responsibility versus what the government should be telling you that you can do. And I think, Nathan, you led it off with the fact that part of the freedoms that we enjoy in this country is the right to kill ourselves if we so choose.
Yeah.
And I think that, everything that everybody has said on here is good and well intentioned, and it's fact. But the overarching conversation is if you let the government get in the business of telling you how to live and what your lifestyle choices ought to be, it don't just stop at your diet. And so if you have a problem with the government telling a woman what to do with her body, if you have a problem with the government telling you what bathroom that you can go into, if you have a problem with the government telling you how to protest and where to protest and when to protest, then you also ought to have a problem with the government telling you how to eat. If you got a problem with them telling you to wear a mask, you ought to have a problem with them telling you how to eat. This comes down to personal freedoms and what this country is built on, which is your right to pursue happiness. And pursuing happiness might be walking yourself right into a heart attack. It wouldn't be my choice. It probably wouldn't be the choice of most people on here listening. But it's the same for people who smoke cigarettes, right? Like, knowing what the Surgeon General says, they still lighten them up. You know what I'm saying? Chewing tobacco, all of that. People have the right to make that decision. And I think the government should not be in the business of forcing you to live a certain type of way. And I think that even goes to diet.
Like, God forbid you want a Snicker. God forbid you want a payday. God forbid you want some red cherry Coke. Like, wow. We come on, man. Sometimes you just want to just have some snacks, or maybe you just want to have a soda with your salad and your avocados. I mean, come on. I mean, gosh darn it. And then what is this going to do to the snack industry? What's it going to do to the snack industry? That means that the price of snacks are going to go up because people are consuming and buying less of them with EBT cards. I mean, we need to really think these things all the way through. But let's move on. And this next story.
Hey Nathan, on that point, real quick, it's all a part of a larger strategy to get you back in the field, right? Follow this to conclusion. You get rid of the snack industry, the chips and all of that. What happens? There are jobs associated with that, man. People who do all the jobs surrounding all of that negative food energy. Now we got you on the healthy food tip, which means all of those farmers and people who picking oranges and things out of the field, they're going to need more workers now, because you ain't going to be able to get them snacks that you like to have. And who are they going to have those jobs ready, willing, and waiting for? It ain't gonna be the immigrants, because they ain't letting them back. they ain't letting them back in the country under Trump. So who they gonna get to pick them fresh fruits and vegetables, after they shut down the snack industry?
And then AI is
Project
going to
2025, man, section 86, chapter 4. I'm telling you, it's all in there. It's laid out.
and then
I'm just
AI
making that
is
up,
going
y'all.
to
I'm just
be
having fun. I'm just
no,
having
no, no. You onto it. AI is eating up white collar jobs. So you're right. It's only going to be a few sectors left. But let's move on. I saw this story, and I think it's underreported, although it's out there in a lot of different media spaces. And I had to double and triple check about this, but it's been widely reported that U.S. troops across branches were being told by their superiors in the military that Donald Trump has been anointed by Jesus to cause the Armageddon in Iran. And apparently there's a unit inside the military that takes complaints for these type of things, and they receive hundreds and hundreds of complaints of enlisted individuals, soldiers, who said that they were told this by their superiors, that Trump was chosen by God, and that's part of the reason why we are in Iran, to lead to the second coming of Jesus, which should be scaring the heck out of everybody here, to think that our U.S. troops are being told this. What is your take on this? What's the first gut reaction to you on this? And there's so many ways. Is invoking God with the military inspiring or dangerous to you?
Well, I think it's I think it's dangerous on a couple of different levels. Look, there's no doubt there are a lot of people who, believe in the book of Revelations and what is read there. Like, people have been doing this for decades, trying to predict when the end is, and assigning things that are in the book of Revelations or other parts of the Bible to current events and things that are going on. And you have some people who really do believe in that stuff. Just like you got people who believe that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. You hear people having these conversations in certain areas and realms, and they believe that. And so I think people for generations have been looking for signs of the second coming and all of that. And so there are people who believe deeply in that. The fact that that's coming from higher levels of your military in a democracy where they're supposed to be, supposedly, a separation of church and state. Like, you shouldn't be making these types of policy decisions in America, in a country that is not a theocracy, but is a democratic republic. Those are not the types of decisions that folks in those positions should be making. Now, I say this as a person of God and as a person of faith, and there are certain things that I believe as well. As for me and my house, we serve the Lord. But I have a hard time with folks talking about Trump was chosen by God. I just have a hard time with that. Now, I know God uses who he uses, but that's a declarative statement that you're making there. That's not conjecture. That's not saying I think. That's not saying anything other than you presenting yourself as some sort of authority, as if God himself has told you this. And that's what I have a problem with.
Why can't he be chosen?
Well, there's been plenty of people in history that we know that has used what I call the God excuse to invoke pain and punishment on people. It seems as if you can throw out religious beliefs or throw a Jesus narrative on it, you can just gives you this mighty power to go in and wipe out a whole nation and say, Jesus told me to do it. And these are the things that constantly leaders have used to really carry out their own personal vendetta. Matthew 24 teaches us that there will be wars and rumors of wars. It teaches us that false prophets will constantly arise. So we are seeing wars and rumors of wars. Now, is God using Trump to fulfill a purpose of his coming, Okay, because the Bible says, and you know this, God sets kings up and he sets them down. But in this process, Trump is being used to wake people up too globally that have gotten laxed in their spiritual beliefs, have gotten lax on things that are necessary in their Christianity. And you're about to see more to come. Because if you read Matthew 24, it said these are going to be the birth pains. So just think, more stuff is going to come. Matter of fact, Nathan, me and Kevin, I remember we said it's going to get worse. But last year, we said it's going to get worse. Get ready. And people better really sit back and do an entire, what I call a review and recheck, because it's more madness that's going to come. We've seen it in historically with Hitler. So I'm sure the Jews back then was like, hey, Jesus gonna come any day now. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Jesus ain't here yet. But during your season, guess what? If you died today, that's it. Yeah. That's it. So next time you wake up, you better hope you're seeing the right maker.
I've heard a lot of people talking about this because I hang out in those circles of older white Republican men, so to speak. So I've heard this a lot. He's Trump's man. He's been chosen by God. He's like the Paul. I've heard them refer Trump to Paul. It's like how they had the conversation when Saul was transferred to Paul in the Bible, if you understand the story. As for my personal beliefs, I believe that God orders my steps personally for me and my family for me to guide my family in a way that he's guided my family. So no matter what, no matter who the president, no matter any of that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter to me. So I don't agree with them in saying that, but it's going to go against popular belief, but it's a true reality that Trump is chosen by God. It's a true reality. If you're a believer, if you believe that God is in control of your life, I believe God's in control of my life. He's got all control of my life, all of it. And Trump's the president, and Trump's the one making the rules. So how can I go against what God has put in place in front of my eyes that I can see physically, and how I'm supposed to interpret that into my discernment in my spirit and say, oh God, he's not your chosen person? Whenever he's the church, I walk by faith in what he puts in front of me. So I'm going to take what Trump being the chosen person by God, and figure out how I'm going to make this work and walk in my spirituality and fall in line to what my spirituality allows me. So I will agree. I don't agree with them invoking it and saying it, but it's the truth. If you believe in God, and you walk in the reality of that Trump's not the one that God chose, what God are you believe? What reality are you living?
Did God
there's
choose
a difference. I think
choose Trump. Did God choose Trump, or did the people choose Trump and God allowed it?
God allowed.
That's what I was going to say. There's a difference. Wait a minute. Let me just inject this. There's a difference. The specific use of the word anointed is critical. And anointed, chosen, set apart versus what Brother Dre said, which is being used. God uses a lot of people. That don't mean everybody that God uses is anointed or chosen or set apart for God's holy mission and will. I have a hard time believing Trump, somebody who doesn't attend any type of worship service, who doesn't acknowledge God in any way publicly that you can see, short of using it for his own political gains, who himself said he never has asked God for forgiveness because he doesn't do bad things, who himself has likened himself in many ways to the Almighty. That to me does not speak to holiness and one who would be anointed in a holy fashion by God. Now that's just me. That's just me going off of my spiritual understandings and teachings. That don't mean that God might not be using Trump. God used Pharaoh, but I don't think anybody would describe Pharaoh in the Bible as holy or anointed. Am I wrong, Brother Dre? Would we use those words to describe Pharaoh in the Bible as holy or anointed?
Right, but what's deep? Let me throw this at you real quick, Kevin. Was the devil in heaven anointed?
And those people around Paul White,
I want to answer that question. Was the devil in heaven? Was he anointed, Lucifer?
Well, he wasn't the devil at that time.
But was he anointed?
He was.
Okay, so in the Bible, it actually said Lucifer was an anointed cherub. He was anointed in heaven, but his heart changed. And then he started to have evil in his heart. So we see
I would say Trump's heart ain't never changed. He been the same. He been the same from birth to now. To take an angel who converted to evil, and like, I don't even want to get into those comparisons with Trump. I'm just saying, I'm not beyond the one to say that God might not be using Donald Trump for his own purposes, but there's a certain level of holiness that I think goes with anointing, that if you're going to use that word, if that's a word that you're going to use, that I don't think Donald Trump possesses. Now, I said think, because I don't know, but I can only see. I'm only going off of what I see. And there's nothing about that man that says holy to me. That's me. If you can look at Donald Trump and you can say that there's something about him that says holy to you, brother, break it down to me, because I'd love to hear it. I'd love to be persuaded if you feel like you can do that. But that's all I'm saying. When you use that word, we got into this in the previous podcast, and people in the chat said it to me. Words matter. Okay, so if words matter, I'm telling you, if that's the word that you're going to use to describe Donald Trump, then you need to know
which word am I using to describe Donald Trump? I want to be clear on it.
Huh?
What word? That's
the words that they said the military was using.
Okay.
Anointed, chosen one by God.
Right.
To bring on the apocalypse. But Laketa, what do you think?
I mean, I don't agree. I don't think that he was chosen. I think he chose himself. I also don't think that should be a conversation that should be happening in the military. I'm disappointed to hear that they are being told this, and particularly with this war. And I'm like, for me, I think it's intentional, because, with a war, you can't have an election. So all this is a setup so he would never be out of office.
I read that, and it could just be something that was on social media, but I read that since the war has started in Iran, and Tarris, on the last show, you seem to have a problem with that term war. That was a week ago. Are you more comfortable with the fact that this is in fact a war now?
It's not a war because war has to be initiated by Congress, approved by Congress, and the more overlapping thing that is, I can say that this is not a war, because the VFW is the Veterans for Foreign War. It's a group of people who, if you had to go over to a foreign war and fight in a foreign war, those people, the World War I and the World War II veterans who have not, those are the last war that Congress said we're at war. These VFWs are in the close to being extinct because there hasn't been a war. So just because we're saying that these conflicts are warlike, and they can call it whatever they want to, until Congress
called it.
Until Trump and Hesketh can call it whatever they want to, until it goes through the Congress and they say it's a war. The VFW can't go and invoke new chapters about people and put people who aren't been in foreign wars. They can't go and do that. It has to go through Congress. It has to go through a federal thing.
That's the reason why a lot of Democrats are calling it an illegal war.
Well, you can call it whatever you want to, but it's not a war. You can call it, you can put whatever you want to. It's a conflict. You can call it whatever you want to. But as far as like going through Congress, and it has not been through the proper channels, and Trump's not going to do that. He's going to go do what he wants to. They'll kick it back and say it wasn't constitutional, and then he'll go back and do something else. So, I mean.
But just because that doesn't make it not a war, because we know what Trump is doing. I mean, you're proving the point is that it didn't go through the process to be considered a war, but Trump is doing what he wants to do. So at the end of the day, you can't feed me ice cream and tell me it ain't poop. It's still poop.
What's the difference between?
Tarris, let me tell you.
The difference between this and what George Bush did, I'm
gonna tell you because there's specific criteria that they look at to determine what war is, and it depends on a variety of different factors. That includes, is it an armed conflict and the scale of that conflict? So as of February 28th, there have been over 1,500 air and missile strikes in Iran.
Obama had more.
Well, I don't care if he had more. The targeting of leadership, right? And the scale of operations, all of those things are factors that they use to define what war is, right? And when you look at that on any the duration, so you could get away with the strike that he did on the nuclear facilities. What was that, last year or a while ago? You could determine that as a strike because it was a one and done type thing. How many? What are we entering into now? What is this, the third week? How many weeks have we been at this in Iran?
Yeah, third week.
Third week. Okay, so 3 weeks. So you got to look at, they've taken out all the leadership. There's been persistent bombing over there over the course of 3 weeks, right? The amount of equipment and whatnot that has been used, you cannot say that this was a strike or a conflict. I mean, just by the pure definition of the amount of time, resources, and the targeting of what they did, this is not just a one and done strike like you've seen like you've seen some other presidents do. This is a prolonged thing, a prolonged deployment. The only thing that's missing, and as you hear them talk about this more and more, is boots on the ground. And if you listen to some of the conversation that Donald Trump has been having of late, it might get to that. And then once it hits that point, there will be no wiggle room or no way out for anybody who wants to try to be in denial about what Donald Trump is doing to say that this is not war. I mean, it's already at that point.
Some people, Kevin
said it was a war. Donald Trump said it was a war. They changed the Department from Defense to war. I mean, let's call it what it is. If it looked like a duck, if it walked like a duck, it's a duck.
Quack.
It's simple as that. I mean, all these little games about it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting because it's just so interesting. I see people online talking about it because, like, they ran so strongly against war, no more war, and Kamala Harris is going to take you to war in Iran. And they turn around and do the exact opposite of what they said. I've seen a lot of people, offering their mea culpas online. Some of these, I call them MAGA influencers, or like, I don't know what to say. We were snookered. So, I mean, it's quite evident what's going on. But here is leading to a question here, is that one thing that has happened is I read that the number of Google searches about Epstein has dropped about 95% after President Trump started bombing Iran. And some people online are calling this the Epstein war. They're saying they feel like, and it's not everybody, but it's some people online saying that they feel like part of the rationale was there was information coming about President Trump that wasn't flattering. And so to distract from all of that, to steal the headlines, he started bombing in Iran. What do you think about that theory? Is that fantastic to you? Does that sound like it could be plausible? But what do you think?
I mean, what did our famous movie, The Usual Suspects, say? The greatest trick the devil pulled was to show that he didn't exist. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's just keep it real. So Trump knew that the superheat was on him. He knew he in the files. I mean, the prince just got outed. I mean, the bottom line is that he knows that it's coming. And so guess what? If I want to throw something in the mix to have you look the opposite way, what better way to do it than throw the war? You just gave the percentage of 95. I didn't know it was that high, 95%. So yeah, he's trying to make sure he duck and elude and get out of this entire situation, because the facts are the facts. And at some point, it's going to come out exactly what's going on, that he was a pedophile and he was involved in all that foolishness, just like with Epstein. And we know that powerful people had him killed. And there's going to be a lot more that's going to come out when it's going to be unleashed.
Just maybe, just maybe, the Clintons' testimony in front of the Congressional Oversight Committee might have had something. Just maybe, when the president the ex-president and his wife got up there in front of the oversight committee and said, you know what, this Epstein thing is overblown. Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with it. It's going. Both Clinton, Bill Clinton said this out of it. Oh my gosh, I don't know which Epstein. I don't know. I watched it. I don't know which one. He said Bill Clinton said out of his mouth, Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with this. So maybe, just maybe. And I don't care about the Epstein files. I think that the Epstein files is the most ridiculous distraction since 9/11. I think that's how I feel about. That's how I feel about.
You know what's so funny to me about people who want to deny about what Donald Trump. Wait a minute, Tarris. Whether or not Donald. First of all, let's just think. No, Tarris, you had your say, brother. Just give me a minute here.
I asked the question.
Huh?
I asked the question.
Let's just say, what's the question, Tarris? What's the question?
The question is this. I said, what does the Clintons getting on there in front of the oversight committee and testifying, would that possibly have anything to do with the searches going down? Because most of the people are like,
no.
Oh, we were waiting for the Clintons. We were waiting for the Clintons.
No, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous, Tarris. That has nothing to do with it. And I think it does have everything to do with this being a distraction. Now, I'm not one who would go so far as to say that's the only reason why Trump did this. Is it a fortunate byproduct of the fact that he did this? Absolutely it is. But, I wouldn't put it past him. But if it is, in fact, then that makes him even worse than I already thought he was, which isn't really quite possible to do. Because to go to war, to potentially subject American soldiers in our country to retaliation, to keep the Epstein whip off your back, like that is a stretch of megalomania that would be frightening if that was true, even more frightening than what we already thought about Donald Trump. I'll say that first. But the other thing that I'll say is what always amazes me about those who want to say Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with the Epstein. Okay, even if I wanted to give you credit and say maybe Donald Trump didn't do anything to any young ladies, maybe he wasn't involved on that level. It strains credulity to think that Donald Trump and this man were that close, that they were boys, that they ran in the same circles, that Donald Trump knew nothing about what Epstein was doing. Come on, man. Think about your own relationships that you have with. I'm not talking about people that you acquainted with, that you just kind of know. I'm talking about people that's in your circle, that's your boys or that's your girls. They ain't going to be involved in nothing that's on that scale that you wouldn't know anything about. And what I always encourage people to use is just common sense. People are the same. Donald Trump ain't no different. In fact, he might be worse because him and Epstein had money. But if you down with somebody and they involved, everybody know when they boy or they girl involved in some stuff that they don't need to be involved in, right?
To a degree, though, Kevin. You never people can hide stuff to a degree.
Yeah, come on, Nathan. But come on, man. These is dudes. I'm talking about just examine what the relationship is, though, Nathan. I'm talking about take a deep look at what how they describe their relationship and what we know publicly the relationship was between Epstein and Trump.
Trump said they was cool and they stopped being cool because they fell out over a real estate deal. That's what Trump said.
Yeah, right. Trump done told about 5 different stories about why him and Epstein fell out. It was over a real estate deal. Then he tried to steal one of his masseuses at Mar-a-Lago. Which is it? Trump done told 4 or 5 different stories. That's why you can't believe this man. He's a serial liar. There's nothing that he could say that I would believe. And I can't understand why anybody else would. If he done told 5 different stories about how him and Epstein fell out, why would you believe anything that he said about Epstein and his relationship with Epstein? This is what I'm saying. People will just defy logic. They will defy their own common sense for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they just don't want to be wrong about Donald Trump. Maybe it's just because they don't want people like me and some other people on here rolling up on them, telling them how dumb they were for voting for him and believing all of this stuff. They don't want that check to come due. So they will do everything that they can to stand 10 toes down on this man, no matter how guilty he is, no matter how much evidence is produced, no matter how much he does the exact opposite of what he campaigned on. People are 10 toes down on their vote, and they're going to die on that hill.
You're right, Kevin. And that's why, and I can't speak, but I don't think we should treat people like that. Like, if people who voted for Trump come to the conclusion like, man, I'm seeing things, I didn't vote for this, or I've changed my opinion, I don't think we should lambast them and ridicule them. I think we should just open the door and let them in. And there's the conversation online about that right now, because like there's a whole lot of people saying that right now. There's a whole new organization called Leaving MAGA. White dude left MAGA. Now he's like leading other people to the promised land away from MAGA. And I have empathy for people. I think that there's a lot of well-intentioned people who voted for Trump and they felt like they had good, strong reasons. And if they come to the conclusion where now they're seeing otherwise, we got to think big picture. We can't get caught up with the petty pointing fingers and I told you so. We should just open the door and just let them in. No questions asked. That's what I think.
The MAGAs, y'all can
whoever.
Republicans, whoever. The MAGAs leaving Trump, then the Democratic Party, people leaving the Democratic Party in droves because they're finding out that the white liberals are just as racist as the white conservatives. I mean, come on, man.
Well, how many white liberal text messages have come out? Where like Democrats,
white liberals don't do it like that. They're more covert. They're going to show you in the polls. They're going to show you with like the Jason Talarico's and the Jasmine Crockett's. They're going to show you there how they really.
Wait. What'd you say now? What do you say? Jasmine Crockett, Talarico. What are you talking about? What about Wesley Hunt?
The white conservatives showed you just how they feel about black people during this runoff between Jasmine Crockett and Talarico. Showed you.
Democrats, you mean?
The white liberals, white Democrats, they show you how they feel. So you're sitting here talking about how the MAGA's leaving Trump, who's not going to be in office, but you're not concerned with the people who are you trying to get elected and trying to hoist up. I don't get it. That's why sometimes I think that you guys do have Donald Trump deranged syndrome, because you guys are more focused about things that are happening within Donald Trump's camp than you are in your own camp whenever I'm over here watching it go in flames. If the Latino vote is replacing the black vote in the Democratic Party, the Democrats have nothing for blacks anymore. And then the women are waking up. Oh my goodness.
That's not true. I think the Latino vote. I think the Latino vote is having just as much impact in conservative circles as it is in liberal circles. I mean, that was part of the whole conversation around Trump getting elected, is that he got a good number of Hispanic voters who cast ballots for
any Republican candidate in a long time, if not ever, actually.
And Tarris, I'll give you this: if you're black in America, right, here's the reality: is that a lot of times you are always picking between the lesser of two evils. Mm-hmm. There's no party, Democrat or Republican, that's wholeheartedly full-throated for black people. And I will say they're racist on both sides, in both sides of the party. But in more recent history, the Democrats have demonstrated more than Republicans that they care about and have moved on more issues that matter to black folks than Republicans have. And so that's the edge that they have. I don't think anybody's delusional that, I mean, look, I go back to when, Hillary Clinton was running against Obama. Right? They went to the race car when they got desperate late, and Obama, when it was looking like Obama was coming in, Clintons, they tried to go to, even within their own Democratic Party, racial tropes that were going to try to scare some white Democrats into not voting for Barack Obama. And what that says to me is, yes, there are some prejudices and racists that still exist even within the confines of the Democratic Party. It's the same point that I made when we were talking about Jasmine Crockett and Talarico in question, or in Texas. I said that very same thing. The argument that y'all were making about being pragmatic And going with Tallarico, what I said that meant to me is that you had to worry about white racists in the Democratic Party if you felt like Jasmine Crockett couldn't win because she was a black female. That says that you don't just have a problem with, that doesn't say to me that you just have a problem with racists and Republicans in Texas, that you got racial problems with Democrats in Texas.
That makes you racist, though, if you're dealing with, to me, that seems pragmatic, but, not to stir up the old conversation. But what I don't get, Tarris, is I've heard a lot of black Republicans, primarily male Republicans, trying to talk about, see, the Democrats, blacks, the Democrat Party has a problem. Look at Tallarico. Look at what happened with Jasmine Crockett. But I've heard nobody talking about Wesley Hunt. He came in third place.
Yeah,
so what does your analysis say about white Republicans and their willingness to vote for a black candidate, a qualified black candidate in Wesley Hunt? Does that mean that they're racist because they didn't vote for him?
Yes.
But I don't hear you talking about that, though. I hear you talking about what's happening.
I can talk about it all day long. In Kentucky, in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Daniel Cameron got beat by Andy Beshear in a Commonwealth of Kentucky that is overwhelmingly Republican.
Did you post about Wesley Hunt?
About Wesley, that was not that had. I didn't post about Wesley Hunt because that had nothing to do with
Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett.
I did because I'm just trying to help I'm not trying to help. I posted that for the reason of this is the same playbook. The Democratic Party hoisted up Jasmine Crockett to be sacrificed. She was a sacrificial lamb, and more people are going to wake up. I'm glad it happened because more people are waking up because now that she got her political career is over, what's she going to do? She's going to be a
They changed her whole district.
They did. They gerrymandered. How is Jasmine
sacrifice?
How is Jasmine? Go talk about the governor.
Tarris, which party gerrymandered Jasmine Crockett's
exactly?
District? Was it Democrat or Republican?
Republican Party who she was talking about. She was talking about Governor Hot Wheels. Oh, Governor Hot Wheels. Governor Hot Wheels. Governor Hot Wheels said, I'm not going to do it like that. I'm going to get you up out of here. We're going to gerrymander your whole thing so where you are out of existence.
And you're in favor of that?
I'm not saying I'm in favor of it or not. I'm just reporting the news. And if you guys can't understand what's going on and you guys can't regroup and still keep letting them prop us up as
wait a minute. I know, Tarris, you're not talking about a party propping up black folks.
So
that's all the Republicans do.
You had the Republican Party that had a problem with an outspoken sister who was making inroads because of her social media post. And they
did this to her.
Wait a minute, Nathan.
Tell me when I'm wrong. But tell me when I'm wrong.
You miss what Tarris just said.
They decided in response was they're not going to put up a challenger in her district. They decided to gerrymander her district underneath her.
Exactly.
Right? To change the demographics in her own district so she could not win. And she decided as a response to run for Senate, ran a hell of a Senate rate, got 1 million votes, and somehow this is the Democrats' vote problem, sir? That makes no sense to me. Can you make that make sense to me, please?
I'm gonna let Kevin say so I can answer both of you at the same time.
No. I don't want to miss you. I don't want to miss what Tarris just said about Tarris's point. What I think he's trying to say is that Democrats prop up black candidates for their own purposes, whether that's to get slaughtered in elections or to push some sort of tokenism. I'm assuming that's what he meant by that.
I heard what he said,
and I couldn't believe that he said that because that is the MO of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is all about tokenism. They will prop people up like Tim Scott and his brother that was out in was it North Carolina, or think about any other blackface that Michael Steele. You remember when their answer to the Republicans' answer to Barack Obama was Michael Steele, right? They tried to put Michael Steele out there. Well, let's get us a black head of the Republican Party and have this brother, run campaigns to try. Now, Michael Steele is a very accomplished and intelligent guy, so he wasn't I'm not saying that there was anything wrong with Michael Steele, but he was being used by the Republicans not because they thought Michael Steele, they had any great grand plans for Michael Steele. He was their attempt to counter Barack Obama during that time. So the Republicans have had a long history, particularly of late, of doing nothing but putting brothers up as tokens and sacrificial lambs and tap dancers for that party, to make it look like nothing more than to make it look like they're open to and concerned about the issues of Black people. And I think that's real. So I think if you're going to talk about parties propping people up, this is the problem that I have with people like you and Twin and other people who are out here championing for the Republican Party. And you got all of this smoke for the Democrats, all this criticism that you have for what the Democratic Party do. But somehow or another, you're completely blind to how you get used by the Republicans. And you think that you got some kind of respect, or that somehow you're different or more enlightened, and you're not. And that is what always kills me about that.
And I would add this to it. This Vanita writes, and she mentions Byron Donalds. Have you been paying attention to what Republicans like DeSantis and others are saying about Byron Donalds, a brother Republican?
I agree. I agree.
The water, but let me finish. He carried the water for Trump, carried the water for Republican parties, and he's dealing with straight up racism inside the Republican Party. And you on here talking about Jasmine Crockett?
Hold on. Okay, I'm gonna answer the question about Byron Donalds, because I don't want to move the goalposts, because you just asked me a direct question about Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds is no different than Barack Obama. Byron Donalds is a tether. He ain't born here. So he's getting all the smoke that he deserves when he starts talking about he's all the black plight. He immigrated over here too, and he's trying to latch on to the black plight. And they found out about it because Tariq called DeSantis's people and told them, "Hey, don't let him pull that stuff. He's not like us. He's not like us. He's not like us." So everything Byron Donalds getting as a Republican black, foundational black American, he's getting exactly what he deserved. And I hope he don't win that governorship, because he tried to use black people just like Barack Obama, just like Kamala Harris. So if it ain't no party, I don't care what party you in, you trying to gain off my ancestors' backs. And you ain't been through that. You ain't been through civil rights. You ain't been through none of that. And I don't care what party you in. If you're going to get ousted by it, you're going to get ousted by it.
You know what? But that's not the point. The point is as you were talking about.
You asked me about Byron Donalds. I told you I don't care about Byron. I hope he gets everything he deserves.
The point that you just made about the Democrats is exactly what you're saying. You're okay that the Republican Party is doing to Byron Donalds, which was my point in the very beginning, is that here you are projecting something onto one party, the Democrats, which there's so many examples that the Republican Party is doing. So maybe it's both parties. That is a hilarious take, huh?
Both of them.
Byron Donalds is an American citizen now?
He's an American citizen, but he is not foundational black. He comes from either Jamaica or Trinidad or something. He's immigrated over here. His parents did not go through civil rights. That's what I'm saying. They keep bringing these people and hoisting these people up into position. And Jasmine Crockett's point. And Jasmine Crockett
was born in America.
Where was his parents born? Where was his parents born?
Byron Donalds was born in America. He grew up in the United States as a dark-skinned black man. He darker than you. So that's my point exactly. His family didn't go through civil rights. His family didn't have any lineage here from slavery or any of that kind of stuff, and didn't have dogs sicked on them. All that ancestral stuff that we have. You haven't had any dogs sicked on you,
but I still have that ancestral through my blood. I know it's got through my blood. Oh my goodness!
But you haven't had any dogs sicked on you. You've brought.
You can arrange that though.
You and Byron Donalds are about the same age. Your experience in America is very similar to his, and he's darker than you are.
So that don't mean nothing. So if I go to Jamaica and I have kids, I'm supposed to raise my kids to understand how Rastafarian works, like people who grew up with Bob Marley's kids.
We're not
That's
talking about
no
Jamaica, sir.
So if I take my kids, I don't use this analogy. If I take my kid, if I go to Jamaica and I have kids in Jamaica and I raise my kids as Rastafarians, but the Rasta, they're learning from the true Rastafarians, my kids are not going to be able to teach the true Rastafarians and lead the true Rastafarians. They're not.
I don't know the laws in Jamaica, but if you moved to Jamaica and had a child and their laws are similar to United States in terms of birthright citizenship, they would be Jamaican. Just like Byron Donalds is a United States citizen, just like you are, just like me. Ain't no different. He grew up just like you and me, Tarris. No different.
All right.
And he's darker than you. So because
he didn't grow up like me. He didn't grow up like me. He grew up like me. He would understand. I had three sisters. I had three sisters who experienced black life. I had a mother and a father who experienced black. Like my dad got my mom at the cotton field. That hell no, he didn't grow up like me. He didn't grow up like me.
Just like you. You ain't had no. He grew up post civil rights, just like you. No different. He grew up just like you, just like me.
Nope.
We all children post civil rights, and we all been dealing with the same stuff. Maybe there's some cultural differences. You know, you make your cornbread a little bit different in the South than he did up in New York, but we all the same, bro. You ain't had no dog sick on you. You ain't never went to no segregated fountains. You haven't.
My dad has.
But
my father has.
But you haven't.
My grandmother has. My great grandmother who was born here.
You didn't. So quit trying to separate yourself. You grew up just like him.
That's the Democratic way. That's what the Democratic Party wants to do, is just to shut people up and say, oh, yeah, Kamala Harris is black. Barack Obama's black. You just take it. Just shut up and take it. No.
I love your engine. Don't stop. Don't quit one bit. Hey, listen, I got to put this topic in here for Brother Dre. It wasn't a part of it, but I think we can all have a quick opinion about it. And that is bringing it back to Cincinnati. Cincinnati City Council gives city manager a glowing review. Brother Dre, this is just for you.
Boy, that is a Marion Barry setup if I ever saw one. Nate, you the truth right there.
This is for Brother Dre. I want to know what Brother Dre thinks about the fact that the city manager got a glowing performance review. And I didn't know this. She making $300K.
I know. 329.
Yeah, she getting paid.
You know what? Mad at her though. I cast some shit. Hey, whatever you do.
Hey, I still want my raise.
Right. And I applaud. She decided not to take a raise because there's gonna be some budget cuts, which I think is very admirable. I probably do the same thing. But what do you think, Brother Dre, about city council saying the city manager received and earned a glowing performance review?
Well, at this point, I'm gonna be totally honest. I'm not surprised. When somebody sent me the information, they said, "Dre, look at this." I said, "I'm not surprised." And they said, "You actually said that she was gonna go ahead and get her stay in office. She wasn't gonna get fired." So, because the bottom line is, when you look at the whole economic review of the city of Cincinnati, they're actually doing pretty good compared to other cities, and economically that they doing well. So that's why they got so many things in place. Now, the bottom line is that if you're a conspiracy theorist, there's a lot of information in why the mayor wanted the city manager. He wanted to make sure that she stayed in place. Why? Because he can control the city manager. And if you can control the city manager, you can control the money. And so if you can control the money, watch how it moves. So the bottom line is she wasn't going to go anywhere. She had everybody that was right there supporting her. And the bottom line is, if you would have got rid of her, that would have opened up a floodgates for somebody to come in, bring their own team, go against the mayor, do an audit of all kind of financial means. So at this point, I told people I'm not surprised, because they in too deep. You're not about to get rid of the city manager at this point, regardless of how tacky and raggedy things look. The mayor is making sure he keeps that core group together, in which they did. And guess what? You're going to have another 4 years of all kind of economic nonsense. But I wanted to see my sister Cole. I wanted to hear her knowledge on this as well.
Exactly. I knew that was going to happen. You really don't have anyone, I feel, that's going to stand up to go against the grain. They're not going to go against the mayor. They're all afraid. I'm not understanding why. They have actually given their power away to the mayor and the city manager. I don't understand how are you going to say a glowing, you're going to give her this glowing performance review when you talked about the crime. You talked about, the different jobs. I'm not surprised that they did it because of who's down there, but definitely not where it should be at. I mean, in my opinion, and I've said it all along, she was in over her head. I don't understand how you go from being the city manager of North College Hill to being the city manager of the city of Cincinnati and think that you think that you understand everything, and that's not the case. I'm very disappointed that at least some of our members of council didn't stand up to this and make a stand. For me, I think that it's a good thing that I went down there because I would have wanted a vote of no confidence in her.
Really? Based upon what?
Based upon a whole bunch of things. Based upon the crime rate, based upon, at the end of the day, when things go wrong, she's at the top. I feel like what you keep doing is you're throwing everybody else underneath the bus instead of you.
But check this out.
The snow removal last year, the potholes, all those things, she's also responsible for just as well.
Hey, let me throw this in, Brother Dre, because I want to get this in before you go again, because you might want to respond to what I'm about to say. I'm going to stir the pot a little bit since Nathan got it popping. For those who were on the Iris Rowley, Cheryl Long hit squad, you 0 for 2. Iris got her new contract. I wish Phil was here. She getting paid. The city manager just got a glowing performance review, even though she ain't get a raise. You see, she clocking that grip. So everybody who was on the black female hit squad, you lost. So I'm just putting that out there just to get the popcorn popping a little bit in case my girl Iris is watching. I'm only sorry Phil ain't here because I know that would have really got him. That would have got his chitlins going on the podcast. So maybe he'll watch it on the remake and he'll come back Friday ready to do that. But on a serious tip, I will kind of agree with the points that Laketa made. It is kind of perplexing a little bit that the city manager can get a glowing, and I don't have anything against Cheryl Long or what she's getting paid or anything like that. This is just a point of fact that when you say that crime is at unacceptable levels, and you've been talking about that, when you talk about a lot of the other challenges that the city has had, the slowness with which they've been spending railroad dollars, and she mentioned the snow removal and other things like that. I'm not saying she should have gotten a bad performance review, but a glowing performance review is probably a bit much. And particularly when you're in the midst of also getting rid of or potentially getting rid of your police chief, you've got issues with the fire chief. So again, don't take what I'm saying as saying Cheryl Long should be fired or that she should be in any kind of trouble. I'm just saying the way that they rated her with a glowing performance review, that would be something that you would think that somebody would get that didn't have any blemishes.
Exactly. And that's exactly how I feel.
And objectively, I don't think you can say that is true of Cheryl Long's tenure up to this point. And so that's the only thing I'm saying about it. Like, not that she shouldn't have gotten good marks or met standards or whatever, but I too was taken aback by the glowing performance review, because I do think that there are probably enough things of concern that you've seen that, glowing might have been a bit much, in my opinion.
Yeah, you know what, Kevin? I love the way you tippy-toed a little bit. You threw in, the Iris, and you threw in a city manager, black women win. Then you come back with, well, she shouldn't have got the glowing. I mean, man, you set that up good for the moment, man. But it ain't getting past Brother Dre from Kirk's Breakers 300. Man, let me tell you something. The bottom line, she didn't get the glowing review. It was below standards. That's the bottom line. Her performance has been trash on how she has navigated things. And if I give her any advice, it to be stay out of the camera. She's actually in the camera just way too much. I've never seen a city manager in the camera front as much as she is. You do have a chief now, interim chief Henny, and even when the shootings came, she's speaking first before anybody. She needs to just step aside, Manage the city. You the city manager. Manage the city. Stop trying to be out front so much and kind of just sit back and let everyone else be in the playbook. But the bottom line is she hasn't earned a glowing review. You said it, so I'm going to echo it. But I'm not going to say as so kind. But however, if you look at crime, murder rates across the city, Cincinnati is actually in a very steady state, dealing with even homicides. They were only, and I'm not gonna say only because I'm always a component of just crime, but they were in the 70s again. That's considered low compared to Baltimore, Chicago. That they got triple numbers. So Cincinnati, as far as crime, is doing good. We are what I call a city that over publicizes information. But we got to be honest with the whole process. We're gonna talk about black women. Then let's talk about, of course, Captain Danita Pettis. I'm really the only brother that be putting her out there. She got her job back as a captain. She is now in District 4, Avondale, as the district commander.
Go, my district.
Go, my black sister. She is in District 4 now. Now, what I would like to see is Cheryl Long, who said that, hey, I was just following what DG said. I was just concurring. Okay, guess what? You want to see black women winning? Let's get the first black assistant chief in the history of the Cincinnati Police Department. And Cheryl Long and Iris Rowley have the power to be able to make that happen.
I think that, I think that Cheryl Long is doing a great job. I think that the things you brought up, a lot of that stuff is out of her hand. And I think that the blemishes that Kevin talked about are just artifacts of leadership. Nothing that you wouldn't expect with a city of this size, with a job of that responsibility. And so I'm just bewildered as to why you guys, all of you, are saying these things about her. I just don't really get it. I think that and again, I don't know what the different rubrics were and how they looked at it, but from where I'm sitting, I don't think she's doing a bad job. I mean, so a glowing review, it seems to be in order to me. The things you got, everything that you guys said just seems like small potatoes. And again, I would call it just the artifacts of leadership, the mechanics of local government.
Pamela said it great. I'm looking at Pamela's remarks, and she said that's like a teacher returning a test that has red marks on it, all red marks, and then give it an A+. I mean, that's exactly what I believe. And you're saying some of the things are out of her control. That is not out of her control. Dre, I'm glad you brought that back up about the fire chief. I mean, that was in her control. What happened with DG was in her control. What happened with Pettis was in her control. So these things are in her control, and things are her responsibility. Then you have the slow stuff. Then the thing you want to do is you fired, or forced into, I shouldn't say fired, you forced into retirement, Jerry. Those things are underneath her responsibility. And so for me, I'm not saying she's doing a bad job, but I definitely don't believe she's doing a glowing job.
She's doing a glowing job. And I think there's a lot of information out there, and I'm not saying I have it, but I think there's a lot of information that goes into these decisions on that level that just never hit the public. And will never hit the public. And so I think it's real easy to say, well, look at this and look at that, if we don't have all of the information that perhaps she had when she was making these decisions. And I think those are the artifacts of leadership. When you're a city manager or you're a mayor, you sometimes have to make decisions because you're privy to information that will never be public, that you can't talk about. And it's real easy to be criticized about it when you don't know what you don't know.
And that's true. And there may be things that we don't know, but again, and it depends on what the city's definition of glowing is. So when I think about what a standard performance evaluation is at, standards means you're doing a good job, you're doing everything that's expected of you, you're not doing a bad job, and you're doing exactly what we hired you to do. Then if you exceed standards, you know what I'm saying, that means you're going above and beyond what we asked you to do. And so that's a level. And then you got exemplary or exceptional performance, which means you're doing things that change the nature of the way that we're doing business. You're bringing in initiatives. You're doing things that's changing the game, that's bettering the company. I don't know that I have seen Cheryl Long do anything that hits that standard. And that doesn't mean that she hasn't done a good job. That doesn't mean that she hasn't met the standards. But if by glowing you mean exceptional, I think objectively that has not been her. And I don't see how you could give her that remark. That's not a diss on her or the job that she's done, but she ain't done nothing that changed the game in Cincinnati. And so from that standpoint, if that's what glowing view means, then objectively I have to say that that's that in my mind, that would be a bit of an over evaluation. That's not to say that Cheryl Long has done a bad job. Like saying that somebody ain't glowing doesn't mean that they're not good, that they're not doing what we were asking them to do. But when you start to get into exceed standards and exceptional, that is going above and beyond just doing what is expected of you in the job and meeting the standard. See, that's the problem now. Like there's so many people who want extra kudos for doing what the check that you get requires you to do. You don't get extra for doing what the job asks you to do. You get extra for doing extra. And so if somebody can point out what Cheryl Long has done in her tenure that is extra, then then I think that's where you can you can make that remark. And then
here's my question for you.
I just want to answer. Brother Dre said one thing about her being in the camera too much. If you look at that evaluation, one of the things she got dinged for was not being on the camera enough. Like one of the things council said is that they wanted her to be in front of the media more, particularly when stuff was hitting the fan in emergency situations. So if you already feel like you're seeing too much of her now, brother, you only gonna get a double dose.
I think what they were saying in front of the issue, like get in front of the issue, don't wait. I feel like something she's waiting for it. I'm hoping that's what they were saying. It's not so much about being in the camera. I think it's more about that she didn't get in front of the issue. She waited to issue past her.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that sounds good. I agree with that. But we got to look at the things that are going on. Somebody mentioned about the fire chief that was fired. I mean, it's going to cost the city millions of dollars. He's going to win his case.
He's going to win his case.
It was a horrible fire. I mean, she signed off on Fiji being what she did with Captain Pettis. The whole charges was ridiculous. It's almost as like she didn't read it and did what Fiji said. And then when we gave her counsel not to hire Fiji, isn't it ironic? The same one that you hired. I mean, you hired her. And it's the same one that had caused a lot of issues that now she went on ahead, got her on administrative leave. So Fiji's still getting paid with city dollars, and she gonna mess around and get paid in the process. So at the end of the day, if we doing glowing reviews for losing millions, and we didn't even talk about the assistant chiefs that she fired in the process. It's just a lot of power control that the mayor don't have anything to do with at this point. And so these are the things that I'm concerned about, that you have these knee-jerk reactions to fire a majority of black people. So we're gonna talk about black, fire chief black, Captain Pettis black.
How many black directors do we have right now? How many black directors do we have? We not as many as we used to.
No, not at all. So Captain Pettis is the only acting captain right now. Captain Norris. 2 black captains, one male and 1 female. And guess what? Captain Pettis just got her job back by a plot to get rid of her, not just from Fiji, but from other black organizations.
Don't they have something talking about Brian Norris now? Ain't they saying stuff about him now?
Correct. So he's not even in a position to move up. The only person now to move up is Captain Danita Pett. That's it. We don't have no blacks moved up. None. It's all male white, female white that's in the second floor. So guess what? If the city manager want to step up, and I'm not saying just put somebody there because they black. No, I'm saying look at the body of work, look at the educational pieces, look at what's there, and look who can make an influence on the city. Then I want to see the needle move.
Cities get fired. Cities get lawsuits every single day. All over across this country. The bigger the city, the more and the bigger the lawsuits. It happens. These kind of things happen, and these personnel decisions happens in businesses every single day. And you make decisions, and sometimes they come back and they cost you, and sometimes they don't. As I said, these are just the artifacts of leadership. This is what it is. I'm not going to hold it against you.
But I think though, Nathan, the reality is no matter what job that we're in, we get paid to produce results and we get measured by our results. And again, you know, my criticism of Cheryl Long is not to say that she was below average or anything. We're talking about a glowing review, and I'm just trying to give an objective analysis of and again, I said this depends on what scale, how they grade. Everybody has a different idea of what exceeds standards and what might be exceptional. Apparently, with this city council, whatever measure they were using for her, she checked off the boxes. But what you can't get mad at is to say to the average citizen who's looking at that and they're judging her by certain criteria or certain results that they see. And look, everybody wants the title, but they don't want to carry the responsibility of the buck stopping with them when stuff goes wrong. It's always somebody else. You want the title. My thing is, if you want the title of being on top, you can't be like, oh, this ain't me or it's somebody. No, you wear all of that when you wear, we don't cut Trump that. We don't cut Trump that slack and say, oh, this is on RFK or what. It all flow back to him because he's the one at the top who made the appointments and who made the choices. So
I don't think it's fair to compare her to Trump.
Title and the power and not take the responsibility that comes with the results of everybody that you pick and who's underneath you in their job performance.
Comparing her to Trump
is costing us millions of dollars. I just don't understand how you get a glowing performance review. And then we're about tracking this money with the you know, it's supposed to go on infrastructure. It's slow moving. How are you giving her a glowing? And again, I don't know this lady. It's nothing against her. I'm just saying, I'm telling you how I feel and what I see. And for me, if I was on council, I would not have been voting to give her a glowing remark. Again, just like Kevin says, in order to get a glowing mark, and you're speaking to someone who's been in HR, you have to go above and beyond. And I don't see her going above and beyond. I don't understand how you get glowing when you're costing the city millions of dollars. When you're costing, if you have a company and someone's costing, if you run your own company and I cost you $1 million and I'm costing you dollars above and beyond than what should be happening, are you going to say that I give me a glowing review? No, you're going to come and have some conversation with me. You should not be getting a glowing review. I don't know nowhere but in city council, of course, it doesn't allow for you to lose out on millions of dollars and yet still y'all get a glowing remark. And I don't see where you've gone above and beyond your job.
I don't see where she hasn't. You know, we're not.
I like to tell you. Tell me where she's gone above and beyond.
Well, you tell me what above and beyond looks like to you.
Because it's not just doing her job. She's supposed to be doing her job. That's what she's getting paid. That's what she's getting $329,000 for.
I'm just saying. I think that there's a lot of backlash against this woman. I don't know if it's because she is a woman. I don't know if because she is a black woman.
We had many women as city managers.
I think we got to get out of that.
Get out of here.
I think we got to get out of that, bro. We can't keep falling back on
it. I know you don't want to hear it. I know it's uncomfortable, but even among black people, that is a real thing. We real quick to cut the umbilical cord when it's one of us. I don't see where this sister has done such a bad job. She's made some decisions along the way that we've talked about, which, I question or I didn't agree with, but that is governance. That is leadership. That's the artifacts of, that's what it looks like. You're not always going to agree. You're going to get lawsuits. You're going to be sued. You're going to have personnel decisions where you make it because you've got information the public don't have. And maybe it comes back to bite you because the courts get involved and say, you know what, you move too fast. But that happens every single day in government all across the country. It's not unusual. It's very usual. It is what it is. And city council, where I read, said that she is moving this city in the right direction. And that's it.
Well, no, never in the history that I can recall that you got both the fire and police chiefs in the issue that you have right now that you're going to cost us millions of dollars, and you get a glowing remark, a glowing review.
We'll have to wait and see.
I don't see how that works in any city you live in, where you got your police and your fire chiefs in the situation that we're in right now, and yet still that person still gets a glowing appraisal.
If it comes back again,
what I have a concern is I don't see, in particularly in just those two instances, where she has gone above and beyond. So
well, you already forgot
that's
too.
what glowing is.
You already just forgot the new the brawl was under her watch at the city manager. Okay, so let's bring that back up. This happened under your watch, doing with the brawl. And now you got a Holly Act because of it.
Come on.
And where was the plan for that? Where was the plan for that? When you have that that many people, that is a potential and a recipe for something negative to happen. And yet still, you didn't think enough to have police in that area.
They have police.
From 4th Street down. You didn't think to have anyone in that area. But a week beforehand, you had a press conference, and your press conference was to initiate a curfew.
Listen, I don't think that the city manager is to blame for the fact that forces outside of the city chose to use their huge platforms like Elon Musk and the vice president to try to amplify what should have been just a local issue and make it into an international issue. That is not her fault.
That's not what she's getting blamed for. And I wouldn't even go so far as to lay the blame of the brawl. You know, look, things happen even despite the best laid plans, right? So you can't, I'm not willing to put that at her feet. But here's what I am willing to say. What role does the city manager have in hiring the police chief?
She has the sole role of hiring the police chief.
Okay. Who reviews the police chief?
She does.
The city manager.
No, wait a minute. Let me finish my point here. Now, if you are at a point where you have said the police chief's leadership is in question and that she is not capable of doing the job, yet this is the person that you hired, and the person that apparently you gave a good enough performance evaluation, just like the one that you got, that you didn't have no problem until the brawl and this other stuff happened. So again, this is where I'm saying,
what's your point?
Well, my point is that if you feel like Police Chief Teresa Thigi ain't up for the job, then the person who hired and reviewed that person and said that they was okay up until 5 months ago, don't they own some responsibility for that?
Oh, you're coming on our side now, Kevin.
Okay. So this is what I'm saying.
Right. And
so if you've got, wait a minute, let me finish this point real quick. So if you've got a mayor who's out there saying that crime in this city is at unacceptable levels, regardless of what the numbers say. This is what the mayor has said. The mayor has said crime is unacceptable. So unacceptable to the point that the police chief is going to be scapegoated for that. Wouldn't you think somebody would be questioning, well, Cheryl, how did the police chief, how did this bad leadership escape your knowledge and you're reviewing this person? And in fact, this is the person that you chose. So how did this get out from under you to the point where it got this bad? You can't escape that. You can't escape the fact that she bears some responsibility and accountability if you're going to say that the police chief is the problem.
You can't have it both ways. You can't, on one hand, criticize her for getting rid of the police chief and then say it was her responsibility to get rid of the police chief.
Sure you can.
You're right. So you're right. She is the person who is directly over the police chief. You asked the question, don't she have some responsibility? Yeah, she dealt with it. She got rid of her.
Now, yeah, but my thing is, here's what we talk about.
America, and every single day it happens in corporate America. It happens in nonprofits where you hire somebody, they're on the job 6, 7, 8 months, and guess what? They're not living up to expectations. And what does leadership do? They get rid of them and get somebody else.
But I tell you what, you have enough bad. You make enough bad hires, they get rid of you.
That's what Cheryl.
You make enough bad hires, they get rid of you. It's just think about it in any sport.
People
just think about it in any sport. The general manager hires a head coach. If the head coach, if you hire 2 or 3 bad head coaches, guess what? You're gonna be out of a job.
That ain't happening in corporate. People hire people and fire people all the time, and they stay in their leadership.
I'm telling you what I know is that if you make enough bad hires, eventually somebody is going to be looking at you like this dude has no judgment about that, because everybody that they bring in is a bad hire.
But we're not talking about multiple bad hires, Kevin.
Well, sure we are. We talking about a fire chief. We talking about a fire chief, ain't we?
Okay, she got rid of him. She dealt with it.
And a police chief.
2.
So two of your most important public safety, you 0 for 2. So 2 of your most important public safety jobs.
So should she
you
have
0
let
for
them
2.
stay on the job?
Huh?
So what do
And
you
public
want
services
leadership
forcing
to
them
do?
retirement.
If you hire somebody and you realize after a short time that they're not living up to your expectations, are you suggesting they just stay on the job?
Well, let
No,
me
I'm
ask
not
you something.
suggesting that they stay on the job.
Okay, then. What
I'm
do you suggest
suggesting
they
that
do then?
you the person who made the bad hire bears responsibility for making
And
that
what are they
hire.
supposed to do with a bad
Well, let me
hire?
ask y'all something. Y'all
Hold on a
missing the
second,
whole
hold on.
point?
But Kevin, what are they supposed to do? If you hire somebody, they're on a job, you realize they're not living up to your responsibilities or their responsibilities, do you let them stay on the job or do you fire them?
So here's my question, Nathan. So up until the brawl,
You didn't answer my question.
no, I'm saying you get rid of them. But here's the question that I'm
So
asking
she
you.
did her job.
So if Fiji was doing such a bad job, because she wasn't, up until according to everything, according to her performance evaluations and everything else, until the brawl, she wasn't doing a bad job. So post brawl, now she's under investigation for her leadership. And apparently this investigation is not just encompassing the period from the brawl forward, they're going back and looking at her leadership. So my question is if you're the city manager and you reviewed her and you gave her a glowing performance evaluation, but now you're going back to that period where you gave her a glowing evaluation to question her leadership, I'm questioning your judgment. Huh?
Is that a fact that the city manager gave Fiji a glowing performance evaluation? I don't remember that.
I mean, I would have to go back and look. I think it's been reported that there were that she got good evaluations.
Okay, this what I want to say. Don't forget this. Every press conference that came up with the mayor, every showing, even after the brawl, what did they say? Oh, we stand by Police Chief Fiji. They constantly said it, consistently. Only time that she started to get, now we got to do something, when it got closer to the election. Now, all of a sudden, you started to see that there were some shootings that started to occur. And the one that the straw that broke the camel's back was the one on the square. And then she opened her mouth and said, behave. Now, all of a sudden, you started to see pressure come down that you better either get rid of this chief or it's going to be you. And the mayor played it strategically because he stopped at that point saying, we have total faith in our chief. He said it all the way up to that point. All of a sudden, he didn't say nothing else about his belief in achievement. We got to do an evaluation. Because why? He wanted to make sure he separated himself from being that chief, because he was going to be in the process. And information states that Cheryl was like, hey, you better do something or you gone too. She got to go. And that's the bottom line. They'd rather pay millions out in the process. And the proof is what it is, because Fiji did everything they wanted. She was the perfect puppet. She did what they said do. And then when the heat got up, guess what? She got axed up out of here. And so Cheryl should have also been axed in that process.
But that's the way those jobs work. Any police chief is going to be, I wouldn't say puppet, but you're not going to get the job, that kind of job, unless the administration, that means the city manager and the mayor, think that you're going to do the job the way they want you to do the job. That's just, it don't matter who you put in that position. That's an understood thing. And I still think that we are operating without all the information. Sometimes in these jobs, decisions are made and there's information that never becomes public, and it may never become public. And it's just the way it is. It goes along with it. And these jobs are different, even though we're using examples and I'm using examples, these, you're talking about city leadership. So you got media attention, you got the politics involved in it. You've got all the other stuff involved with just doing the job itself. There's just a whole lot of factors that go into those kind of positions on that level. And we may not be privy to all the information, but it goes back to what I said. I still stand by what I said. I think city council got it right. I think she deserved a glowing review. I think the Cincinnati's headed in the right direction, in part because she's in that position. And yeah, I don't have to agree with every little thing. And every time something happens, it doesn't mean somebody got to be fired or they got to be demoted. That's just the way these jobs go. That's just leadership on that level.
I'm sure Chief Thiegy would agree with you. I'm sure Chief Thiegy would agree with you right now that every time something go wrong, it don't mean that somebody should get fired, but she's on the chopping block. And all I'm saying is that you feel like Chief Thiegy failed, then at some point down the line, you got to look at who she's reporting to. If she's failed badly, and say that look, I guarantee you, if I go off the reservation and do something that draws dishonor on the Inquirer or anything like that, yeah, I may get fired, but you best believe the corporate people gonna come looking for my balls and be like, where was you at when he was doing this? What was you doing? How did he get that off? And you ain't know what was going on. Those are reasonable questions that are asked when the buck stops with you. And I'm just saying, if you're going to give somebody an exemplary or a glowing evaluation,
which she deserves,
yet the people underneath that person have done terminable things.
Happens every day.
The two just don't mesh up with me. You can't say you can't say that the number 2 is doing a terrible job and the number 1 is doing an exceptional job, because the two things do not match up. If my number 2 is doing a terrible job, by the very nature of that, I can't be doing a great job, because my job is to make sure my number 2 is doing a good job.
That sounds good.
No, that sounds true.
That sounds good until you factor in the type of positions we're talking about. These are political positions. This ain't just straight X's and O's, balls and strikes. Political wins and the way that politics are going impact those positions. It impacts it. And it might make sense on paper. It might not make sense on paper. But that is the nature of the job of police chief. That is the nature of the job of city manager. The politics, the wins of the politics, they all factor into it. And again, there might be information involved in this that we are just not privy to, including with the fire chief. So the city manager might have been privy to some information that is not public about what happened there that led her to make that decision. And if courts come back later and say, hey, it was premature, then that's what they do. That's what they do. But it doesn't mean that she was necessarily wrong. Sometimes it looks like that when you're in that kind of position. We ain't talking about just some average job. We're talking about city manager of Cincinnati. That is a huge job, and she got all kind of factors that play into that, including public sentiment.
But you know what, Nathan? You don't get no sympathy for that. You know why? Because everything you just described is in the job description, and it's part of her job to manage all of that. You don't get no sympathy. You don't get no free balls or anything like that, because the job comes with political pressures and all of that. When you get hired, you got to navigate that. That comes with the territory.
I agree.
That comes with it. You got to manage a council. You got to manage a mayor. You got to manage the people underneath. You got to manage public perception. That comes with the job. And I'm quite certain Cheryl Long understood that when she took it.
Yeah, I agree with you, but this isn't sympathy. This is discernment. This is understanding that there's stuff that I probably just don't know, right? This is me understanding that there is a whole world out there that is influenced by things that I may not understand. So that's not sympathy. That's just discernment.
Okay, I'm gonna finish with this. I want people to pay attention to something I have to say. Have you noticed that the FOP never gave a no confidence vote to city manager? Did you ever pay attention to that? They gave a no confidence vote to the mayor. They never gave a no confidence vote to Thiegy, and they never gave a no confidence vote to Cheryl Long. And that was strategic. Because the bottom line is the mayor is controlling the city manager. He really is.
Of course he is.
She holds the money, like the money to the city and things that he wants to do. Everything he said he wants to do, he wants to make sure he gets it done. And he needs a city manager that's going to be the puppet. But what I want you to look at is the FOP got played. And they look real crazy right now, because now they say we support Thiegy, But they're not saying we don't have no confidence in Cheryl Long. Why? Because the contract is up. And guess what? Hear it here first. This is going to be one of the lowest contracts again for the Cincinnati Police Department. Because guess what? There ain't no money left. So you about to see something else come up with the city contract. Trust
All I'm saying is you're right about, you said that the mayor is controlling the city man. Of course. The mayor controls every city manager, of course. And at the point in which that they are not on the same page, then the city manager is up out of here. That's what we learned. That's the way jobs work. You go to any job, the person that hires you, if you're not on page with what their agenda is, you're leaving. Any job. That's the way employment works. Simple as that. The moment you step out of line with the person who got you in that position and you no longer are on lockstep, you got to go. That's anywhere. Everywhere. So it's not.
I think that's true. I think that's a true statement.
If I was the mayor, the city manager better be on point with my agenda, period. If you were the mayor, the city manager better be on point with your agenda or the manager is gone. Period. That's just the way it works.
Yeah. And again, the agenda is what the agenda is, right? What we're talking about here is results. And I don't say I hate this conversation because I think it's a good conversation, because what it ultimately winds up coming down to, at least from where I'm at, it's kind of like having a debate about, like, when you have those debates, like who's the best wide receiver, Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. And then you start picking apart two great players to find things that are wrong with them to justify the argument about the one that you think is better. So in my conversation about this is kind of like this. It's not about, has Cheryl Long done her job, or even has she done a good job? I've said multiple times, that's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing with the definition of glowing. And in my opinion, if you're going to give somebody a glowing review, and again, that's all this is my opinion. As I said, city council, I don't know what criteria they use. Apparently, whatever criteria they were using to define what glowing is, apparently she met that, because that's what she got. But for me, going by what standard performance evaluations are, a glowing or an exceptional evaluation would mean you brought things to the table that changed the game. That in corporate America, when you are exceptional, you are somebody that brings an idea to bear that makes the company money, not that loses the company money, not that helps the company sustain where they at. You bringing in some stuff that changes the game, right? That's bringing more readers to the paper, that's doing this, that, and the other. That is exceptional performance. Me coming in, writing columns, sifting through letters, doing what I'm supposed to be, that's meeting standards, right? That's, hey, you're good job, man. You're doing what we hired you to do. We ain't got no problems with you. That's different than, in my mind, glowing. And I'm just saying, for those who feel that way, point to what the game changers have been. Well, and if city council, and I think it's fair to ask city council and the mayor to point that out. What are the game changers? And then once they articulate it, then you let the public decide if in fact the results match that.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. The other way is you tell me what a game changer. What does it mean to you to have an exceptional city manager?
I think if you went around and asked the average resident of Cincinnati if they feel like their life is any different since Cheryl Long became the city manager, first of all, if they knew who Cheryl Long was, that might be a coup in and of itself. Secondly, pointing directly to things that the city has changed that's made a difference in their life. That's what I'm talking about game changer. People going to be like, hey, man, I don't see no different.
Okay,
that's an impossible standard,
you said a lot of these things are not in her control. Well, what about the money, the train money? Is that not in her control?
In terms of the disbursement of it, I think it's probably in her control. Yeah, for sure.
So that's wouldn't that be part of her review? I mean, if it's been slow to getting slow out, how are you still getting a glowing review? Again, for me, I just don't see glowing.
Yeah, I mean, it's been slow.
That's where my question comes in at. And it's almost 4:00. I got to go get my child But I
I
just can't.
appreciate you.
I don't
Thank you so much.
understand the glowing. That's where I'm at. That's my concern. The glowing.
To be continued.
All right, absolutely. Yeah, I stand by what I said. Yeah, for sure.
It's
I
good
think,
conversation, man. Like
yeah,
I said,
absolutely.
you know,
I think 18% is what's been dispersed. I don't know what the expectation was from the gate.
yeah.
We never had a conversation about, okay, by this date, 10% should be dispersed. By this date, 40%. We never had that conversation.
No, but we
I
know
don't
it should
know.
be more than what is being dispersed. We know that.
I don't know. I know that if you're talking about concrete and all that kind of stuff with the tariffs, I mean, that's gotten very expensive. I don't know what that pipeline looks like. You know what I'm saying? Again, there's a lot I just don't know. So I'm not going to assume the negative when I'm telling you straight up, I don't know how that works. I don't know what my expectations were in terms of the amount of money and the percentage of the money and how it was going to be dispersed. I didn't have anything in my head. So when I hear people saying it's moving slow, I'm like, what was the agenda? I didn't have one. Most people didn't. We just feel like we don't see enough. And to me, that's just not the same as saying this sister's not doing a glowing job. So, you know, that's just me. You know, I mean, you can ask people.
I agree with you, Nate. There's probably a lot. There are probably a lot of things on some things that we don't know. I mean, in fact, I can say that with certainty, relative certainty, that there are probably there's a lot of information that there's way more that we don't know than what we do know. And what we do know is limited in terms of what gets reported and what gets released. And as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, I will always say whatever you read in your newspaper or hear on TV is not the entirety 100% of the story. There are always details that are left out. There's always something that somebody's not saying or that they're not going to release, or conversations that you're never going to be privy to. So at best, you know, you might be getting 75% of it, you know, a lot of times. And I mean, it's not a bad thing. That's better than nothing, but rarely is it everything. And so I think that, and sometimes that 25% can make all of the difference sometimes in how we see issues. So I'll give you that.
Yeah, so we shall see. We shall see. But thank you, everybody, for your time. I appreciate you. We've been going here for 2 hours and 35 minutes. So I'm gonna let you guys get back to your week and get back to your Tuesday. And we're planning to be back on Friday at 1:15 p.m. Thank you to all the people in the chat for being here. Really appreciate the comments. Couldn't get to all of them. Lemmy says I'm clueless today. I'm clueless every day. Where you been? This ain't the first day. That's every day. But to all the comments, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. And like I said, we'll be back on Friday at 1:15 p.m. And I think Sexy Phil will be back with us among some other folks. Might have some new voices. There's an application on our Facebook page. It's pinned to the top of the post. There's also one on YouTube on our post as well. If you're interested, just fill it out and I'll respond to you very, very quickly and see if we can get you on. You can join the crew. Love to have you. Thanks, everybody. To Tarris, he jumped off. I guess he had things going on. Appreciate you, Tarris. Brother Dre, Laketa, Kevin Aldridge. Appreciate everybody. And we'll catch up real soon.
All right. Appreciate it.
All righty. Have a good one.
Peace.